But I'm okay for like cues and sequencing up until the core series. And I think because it slows down quite a bit, I might actually be taking too long from there on. And I have the same thing as Tori with the crescent series, just the left and the right and which side. Um, so my brain tells me I should do the opposite of what I think, and that might help. um, but yeah, I think right now I'm actually maybe too slow, like from that core series onward, because I timed myself and it was like 45 minutes by the time I got through to the Utkantasana part. So I think that might be a little too long because I looked at the rest and I think I need a little more time, because then Shavasana is going to be like 5 seconds and then off you go. So
that's interesting. Yeah, usually when we get to that point in class, like after core, a lot of times what I'll see is students will go faster because, there isn't that flow component, there's not that one breath per movement section in it. Um, yeah, lay down now, get up, class is over. I've taught classes like that before it happens. But yeah, I think paying attention to the breath is going to be really important for you then, Flo, to help kind of gauge, how long they've been in that particular pose. Well, good. I'm glad that I'm kind of getting some, information here from several of you that, you're struggling with a particular aspect. So cool. So I know how to spend some time. Christian, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I tweaked my neck earlier in the week, so that's not fun. I've been trying to stretch it out for the last few days, but then I think I got sick yesterday, so that kind of delayed things. Um, as far as the sequence goes, my poses, my like base poses, and like what follows what, and the breath is okay. I agree with a lot of other people are saying. I get lost in the sequence once we start repeating and switching sides sometimes. Um, cues, I'm okay with cues. I remember some cues because they've helped me out. Um, but just layering in, I think eventually I need to do this script thing people are doing just to have other cues in there to think about. Um, and then I also have been doing some stuff with my roommates and stuff, so I've been able to practice with like some beginners and stuff, and that is helpful. But it's also uh, so you have to cue what they need, and so the cues are just everything's just kind of different then. So it's helpful, but it's not necessarily helpful for getting through the sequence the way I need to get through the sequence. So I don't know, but there's still a decent amount of time, so I'm not too worried about it.
Good. Yeah. I, and to your point, like teaching the sequence in any capacity is going to be helpful to you at this point. So, don't get so locked into, that it's not the way that you need it to be, because I guarantee you're getting way more out of teaching somebody that isn't necessarily on this path with you, isn't necessarily, regularly practicing yoga or things like that. You're getting a lot out of it, especially if you're having to, figure out the cues that they need. So keep doing that. But yeah, you might want to also do the script as well, because that'll help you to organize your thoughts. So those of you that are saying that you kind of get out of sync and you're not sure like where you are in the sequence and things like that, the likelihood of you not being present and being focused on what's coming next is what's causing you to get out of sync with it. So, the more you practice, the more you just get the words out, the more it's going to help you to stay on that page so that you know where you are and you're not getting lost in the sequence. And then one day you'll be writing your own sequences and you'll get lost on your own sequences. So that's a whole different thing. But we'll talk about what I think we're going to do. And before I get to Caleb, what I think we'll do today is I'll lead you through the whole sequence up to and including triangle. So that way you can, start off fresh and have it in your body so that those of you that learn better that way will have that little boost. Caleb, how about you? How are you today?
Doing good. As far as like kind of on the same level with everybody else, just like struggling with the same stuff, feeling like I should have everything memorized by now, but I don't. And trying not to beat myself up over that, and not worry and just know that it's going to come with time. And that's all there is to it. Other than that, excited about the new poses today. I went to physical therapy twice this week and my tushy is on fire. This guy is putting me through like the craziest moves like to strengthen my knee. But the good news is after only 2 sessions, I'm able to squat down. I can't get in child's pose yet. It's just like when the knee is bent and there's pressure on the joint, there's like something in there, but it's getting better and better. So other than that, super sore from physical therapy and making progress with the healing of the knee though. So that's really good. I'm excited about that.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Take it easy today. Don't, especially if you've had a bunch of sessions and you're feeling it, like take it easy today, especially with triangle. Because triangle can tweak your knee if you're not really, in super great alignment and you're trying really hard. So just be careful with it. Okay.
Yeah. I've been able to,
but I'm glad.
yeah,
Go
thank you. I've been able to practice. It's just that I know that there's certain, like I can put all the warriors, I can do all of that stuff. It's just a certain way, like I was saying, that my knee is bent and with pressure on it. But I can do all standing stuff. And it's strange, but I'll take it easy if I need to, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. And then, like I said, we'll have some time today. I know, Christian, you mentioned your neck is sore. Flo had texted me earlier about some, stretches for the neck and things like that. So I'll take you through a few things, and maybe even Sam has a couple like bonus things that we can teach you, just, in the spirit of your own self-care, right? Because, you're doing a lot of yoga, and so even doing a lot of yoga, you're still doing a lot of the same movements, and that puts a lot of pressure on your body. So we'll get you worked out for sure today. And then Corey is not feeling super great. She's struggling with a migraine right now. So she's just going to kind of listen in and take care of whatever she needs. So I won't bother her too much today. Hang on, I'm just trying to read the chat real quick. Cool. All right. So, yeah, like I said, what I think we'll do today is kind of first off, I'll lead you through the sequence up to and including triangle. So you can start to think about, moving your body and getting prepped for the day. Those of you that are struggling with the crescent series and what side to lift on side plank first, it's the side that lifts up into side plank is the leg that's forward. So if your right leg is forward, right, in the lunge, lizard lunge, what have you, that's the side that's going to lift in side plank, okay? So you don't have to, it gets clunky if you try to switch sides and everything like that, number one. And number two, when you're in lizard lunge and your right leg is forward, you're opening up through the inner thigh, you're opening up through the hip, and things like that, so that when you bring your leg back into side plank, it's about squeezing the legs together, so activating the inner thigh, and you're lifting that side, right? So it's kind of like simultaneously a release on the outer hip as well as engaging the inner thigh. So if that helps you to understand the whys and the mechanics behind it, or if you just simply need to know like what side lifts on, right side crescent lunge, it's whatever leg is forward is the leg that lifts when you take it back into side plank. Make sense? Okay. So yeah, if left leg is forward, when you move to side plank, the left side is the side that's going to lift. Okay. All right. So get yourself set up to practice. Oh, Kayla, go ahead.
Just a quick question. How much time do we have in between when we finish like going through all the poses and finish the sequence until we have to like teach it or teach a part of it or whatever?
In terms of like the friends and family class, or
Yeah.
what do you, I don't have it right in front of me, but you have some time. You have like at least a practice teach in between. You know what, before we get like diving into practice, let's clear up some of that stuff, because I haven't had you for a posture clinic yet, and all that. So how the friends and family class works is the first one. So you have 3 friends and family classes, right? The very first one, I will let you know ahead of time what section, sorry, I lost a word there, what section you're going to be teaching. So you'll know at least a week in advance what section you're going to be teaching, so you can practice it and everything like that and get comfortable with it. The 2 that follow, the 2 other friends and family classes, you won't know. I'll just randomly assign them to you, and you'll know the day of what section you teach. Okay. So that first one is kind of like, you know, you have time to prepare and everything like that. And then when we do the teach out, now when we're in person, and we do the teach out, what happens is, and I'm going to tell you this because I don't know, you know, like how it's going to work via Zoom, because obviously there's some of you that just are not going to be able to be there in person. But typically when we teach it in person, you pair up with each other and you take turns. So one person teaches the whole sequence, then we take a little break, and then the other person teaches the whole sequence. So what we want you to do in the teach out when we do it via Zoom is to be ready to teach the whole sequence, okay? Because then the day of the teach out, you're randomly assigned into a group and you're randomly assigned what section you'll teach in the teach out. So typically there's about 4 people per group. We break you up into small groups, and you'll go into your breakout rooms and all that. And you'll be in that small group, and then we will either tell you before you start teaching, okay, Kayla, you're going to teach integration Sun A and, you know, Sun B. And then the next person, Flo, you'll teach, you know, core, crescent, Utkatasana, however it works out, you know, however many people are in the group. Or we'll just randomly call on you. Generally speaking, though, I like to let you know what you're teaching when you break up into the groups. So, you know, we want you to be able to teach the whole sequence, but you're not, just the way that this is set up and the way that we, you know, have to work with the time constraints and everything like that. We just not able to have you teach the whole sequence other than in practice teach. So when we go into practice teach and things like that, you'll have times where you're paired up with each other and you'll be able to teach the whole sequence start to finish to each other. So there's lots of time to practice before you're like, you know, thrown into the friends and family or the teach out or anything like that. Okay. Don't stress. You'll have time. All right.
Okay, good. Because I was just thinking, because kind of like with Katie on the big picture thing, and I would like to like have it all done and then really dive into like memorizing, teaching, and then I think that'll help me get it all together.
Good. Yeah. And, you know, the friends and family class, like it's, you know, it's kind of like a fun thing. You know, I always liken it to the yoga dance recital. You know, you get to invite your friends and family to come and see what you've been learning to do. You know, and everybody's really supportive. And, you know, it's not, the friends and family class is not a time for me to really critique you guys. It's more so like do the thing, practice teaching a live class. And yeah, I'll give you some feedback. But it's not like, you know, it's not like pass or fail or anything like that. Okay, cool. All right. So get yourselves set up to practice some yoga. I am going to pull up my materials and I'll lead you through class in just a moment. Oh, and Samantha is here. I'm sure you know, though. Samantha's here helping out, learning the ropes as far as posture clinics go. I know there's a teacher's manual in here somewhere. Like, where did it go. Hey Samantha, did I ever send you the manual with the teacher notes?
No, Erica did. Oh,
Can
wait.
you refresh my memory? What is it called? Because I'm trying to find it in my documents.
With teacher notes? I don't know about
yeah.
that, but I have the YTT manual.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
No, it's fine. I should just try to one day organize my Google Drive into some sort of readable nonsense.
Want me to forward the email that Erica had sent me about it?
No, it's fine. I'm just going to use what I have. All right. Plus, I'm trying to do it on my phone, so I can't find anything that I want anyway. So
That's always how that
no
goes.
worries. Yeah. Because, you know, if I try to do anything on my computer while I'm having a Zoom meeting, Samantha found out what happens to me with technology. I tried to lead a meditation for Cambio, and my whole computer setup just froze and died. So that was super relaxing for me.
Yeah, it puts you in the right frame mind for
It's
your teaching meditation.
Talk about like flow getting, you know, ahead of herself, and I'm like reading the meditation like, okay, and then we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do that. It's like, no, slow down. Slow down. Oh my gosh.
But it all worked out, and that's the thing. That's the important thing. That
Yep.
it always works out. You're not going to break yoga.
Nope, you're not gonna break yoga.
No. So breathe and then just continue.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Cool. All right. So do we have everyone back and ready? All right. Hi. It's 9:37. I'm Kristen. I'm going to lead you through 3/4 of your vinyasa class today. So, welcome, and meet me in child's pose. If child's pose feels good, if it doesn't, tabletop or a seated position will do just fine for you. Bring your knees wide, big toes to touch behind you. And stretch your arms out in front of you. And just take a moment to settle in. So whether you had a stressful morning, things were out of sync, or you had a nice leisurely wake up, let it go and start to come down into your breath. Find Ujjayi with that slight constriction at the back of your throat, in and out through the nose. And as your body starts to settle and you start to get a little bit more grounded, let the breath get more robust, deeper in length and duration. Let your hips reach towards your heels with every exhale. They don't ever have to touch. And start to get a little bit more active in your fingertips, reaching your fingertips into the earth. Start to feel the center of your palm lift. And release your day. Take a big breath in through the nose. And open mouth exhale, let it go. Remember to practice with safety in mind. Take breaks when you need it. Obviously, I'm not going to be offering any hands-on adjustments or assists, but I will certainly offer verbal adjustments and assists. But if you don't want me to bother you, raise your arm up high and I'll leave you alone, I promise. I'll try to remember anyway. All right, from here, inhale, tabletop position. Come to all fours, Stack your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips. And take a moment here, maybe tap out the tops of your feet. And draw your belly towards your spine, ribs knit in towards your spine. And get ready for a couple of cat and cows. As you inhale, drop your belly, lift your gaze, lift your tail, cow. And exhale, round and arch your spine into cat. Really press the belly button towards your spine. Inhale, cow, drop the belly. And exhale, cat. Take it through a few revolutions at your own pace, your own rhythm. If one feels particularly good to you today, you're welcome to stay there. Belle, your kitten's coming to check you out. Oh my God, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen. That's amazing. And then take a moment, if any organic movements feel good to you, maybe look over each shoulder, sink your hips back towards your heels, roll your torso around, anything that feels good so that you can start to work out any kinks in your body. And then once you feel ready, come back into neutral, and Jenny's dog is going to lick her face. Moving into downward facing dog from here. Hands move forward, one hand print. Curl your toes and lift up and back into your upside down V shape. And it's your first one of the day, maybe, probably. So pedal it out. Keep it nice and loose. Bend one knee, then the other. Shake your hips, shake your head. And just find any movements that are appealing to you. And maybe that is stillness. And when you're ready, settle into that stillness. Root your fingertips into the earth. And heels reach towards the floor. They don't ever have to touch. And keep as much of a bend in your knees as you need to today. And as you inhale, look forward between your hands, and exhale, baby step your feet up into ragdoll. Feet at least hip width distance once you get there. Knees keep a generous bend, and drape your torso over your thighs. Let your head hang heavy. Again, you can take any movements or stillness that feels good to you. So you might bob side to side or up and down a little bit. And one movement that I really like, I like to move the weight from my heels to the ball of my foot and then back and forth that way. It just changes the trajectory of the stretch for me and allows me to settle into a little bit more comfort. So maybe that feels nice to you. And then release the hands down if they're not already. You can keep your feet right where they are or toe heel them into touch, and slowly come up to standing Tadasana, mountain pose. Arms by your sides. And take a moment to really ground down into your foundation. So maybe lift and spread your toes. Feel your feet root down into all four corners. And feel how lifting your toes gives a little gentle engagement in the legs. Kneecaps lift. Low belly draws in to lengthen through the tailbone. Ribs draw back, shoulders down. And take a full breath here. Big breath in and a full breath out. And then inhale, extended mountain Urdhva Hastasana, arms overhead. And find softness in the traps, in the tops of your shoulders. So your shoulder blades shouldn't squeeze down and back. Let them naturally wing out. But find softness in your trapezius muscles, so the upper shoulders. Take a full breath in. And exhale, hands to your heart, Samastiti. And take a moment here and set your intention. And just simply offer up being open to learning today, without putting too much judgment, aversion, or attachment to the outcome. And simply be willing to learn. And breathe it in fully. And exhale, let go of anything you need to release. And circle sweep the arms up overhead, extended mountain once again. Inhale. And exhale, fold forward, hands through heart center, hinge at the hips, keep your knees soft. So a little deeper than ragdoll, but still bend your knees as much as you need to. Reach the crown of your head down towards the floor. Inhale, halfway lift, hands to the shins or the thighs. Bring the weight ever so slightly forward if you're back into your heels. Keep a generous bend in your knees if that feels good. Squeeze your shoulder blades back and bring your chin off your chest just a little bit, Caleb. There we go. Take a big breath in and exhale, fold and release. Plant your hands on the mat, step your feet back, high plank, push up position, and pause there. You may always drop down to your knees, or if you need a little extra this morning, you can shift forward and back, bring the weight forward onto the tiptoes and then back, press the heels back. It's up to you. But find a nice strong and straight line from the heels to the crown of your head. So if you're looking down at your belly button, bring your gaze slightly forward. Take a breath in and then exhale, lower down to your belly. Knees can always come down first. Set up for baby cobra. Zip the legs together, tops of the feet onto the floor, little to no weight in your hands. Inhale, lift your chest. Pull your shoulders out of your ears. Press down strongly into your feet. Stay strong in your foundation here. Ride the breath. Let it move in and out through the body. Big inhale. Exhale, release. Forehead comes down. Back into downward facing dog. So you can press yourself up through a plank, a tabletop, or a child's pose. And just check in, see how this downward facing dog feels compared to the very first one. Maybe you're starting to open up along the back side of the body. Maybe you feel a little bit more buoyant, a little lighter. Maybe you're having a high gravity day. Look forward, inhale. And come on down to a seat. Exhale. I forgot to, it's been so long since I've taught this whole sequence through that I'm forgetting what I need to do for you. So break down your half series. So of course, half series transition to get you from wherever you are on your mat back into downward facing dog. So you have choices. You can either take what we just did, where you're in plank, lower down to your belly, take cobra, and then back into downward facing dog, or you can take chaturanga, your half series. So half series is high plank to low plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog, and downward facing dog. So I'm not going to show you because I'm connected, okay? But I'm going to kind of show you the arms here. So from plank, you're in plank position. Arms are forward. You'll hinge slightly forward, ever so slightly. And as you exhale, elbows bend back. As soon as they come to the point of grazing near your ribs, you've gone far enough. So we're not going past 90 degrees with the elbows. And then upward facing dog, you'll open up through the chest, your thighs lift up off the floor and back into downward facing dog as you flip your feet over. You can do this on your knees, or you can skip the whole thing altogether. It's up to you, or some combination of the two options, okay? So I will lead you through chaturanga option on this next one, and then whatever you want to do from there on out, okay? Make sense? All right, come on back. Downward facing dog for me. All right, get strong in the arms. Press down into the space between your thumb and your first finger. We'll move one breath per movement through Sun A. Look forward as you inhale. Exhale, feet to hands, forward fold at the top of your space. Inhale, halfway lift, lengthen your spine. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, extended mountain, arms overhead, rise up. Exhale, fold right back down. Hinge at your hips. Keep your knees soft as you fold. Halfway lift. Inhale. Exhale, hands to the mat. Step your feet back. High plank, push up position and pause there. Bring your chin off your chest. Hinge slightly forward as you inhale. Exhale, elbows bend back, no more than 90. Upward facing dog, lift your thighs. Exhale, downward facing dog, take it back. And now remember, chaturanga is a pose, not a pass through. So if you find yourself swooping into the birdseed, then maybe you should use your knees or skip it, okay? Protect your shoulders. One more time through. Look forward, inhale. Exhale, forward folds, feet to hands. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, fold and release. Inhale, extended mountain, arms overhead. Exhale, fold right back down, hinge at the hips. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, hands to the mat, step back, high plank. Take it through your half series. So maybe that is high to low plank and up dog. Maybe you take cobra, or maybe you skip it. You can always alternate. Do one option on one round, another option on the next round. Full breath in, full breath out. Gaze forward, inhale. Exhale, feet to hands, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, fold and release. Inhale, Utkatasana, sit back into yogi's chair. The weight drops back into your heels. Your toes are nice and soft. If your feet are together, your knees are together. If your feet are apart, your knees are at the same distance apart. Draw your low belly in, lengthen through the tailbone. Bring your chin off your chest. Take another full round of breath in. And exhale, fold forward. Let it go. Inhale, halfway lift, lengthen your spine. Exhale, hands to the mat, step back, high plank, half series of your choice. Remember, push the mat away from you as you lower whichever option you take. Stay strong in your core. And then find downward facing dog. Breathe in, breathe out. Right leg lifts long behind you. Inhale. And try to level your hips, really extend through your right leg. Low belly draws in, and continue to press your heart back towards your thigh. Take another breath in, and then exhale, lunge. Step your foot between your hands. And now it's up to you. You can take some movement here, maybe surf it out forwards and back, or maybe you work the stretch along the hip flexor here. It's up to you. Stay still. But whatever option you take, make sure that your ankle is stacked under your knee and your back leg is active. Start to come into stillness. And draw the low belly in. Start to get strong through the core here. And as you inhale, warrior two, back heel spins down, torso sweeps up, arms are teed out. And take a moment to adjust your stance. So make sure that your right toes point forward towards the front of your mat and your knee follows in that same direction out towards your middle three toes. Back foot is either parallel with the short edge of your mat, or your toes are slightly forward. Remember, it's not about trying to smush yourself between two panes of glass. So your left hip should kind of come forward a little bit. Good. Sink down into it. Exhale, get strong. Reach forward as you inhale. Exhale, extended side angle, right elbow down, left arm up. Stay strong in your legs. So your legs shouldn't change position too much there. Take your left hip down just a little bit, sink into it. Trust your legs. Good. Breathe here, roll your heart open. And then stay strong in your legs. Keep them right where they are. Inhale, reverse warrior, reach up and back. Right arm reaches. Feel yourself lift up and out of your hip just a little bit. So really expand the ribs, reach tall. And bring your knee forward just a little bit, Belle, if you can. Good. All right, I saw 3 of you do that. Good job. Breath in, and then exhale. Windmill the hands down to the mat. Pick up your right foot as you take it back into high plank and half series of your choice. Push the mat away. Keep your chin off your chest. No looking at where you came from. Good job. All right, full breath in, full breath out. Inhale, left leg lifts. And so once again, strength through the leg, level your hips as much as you can, and then see if you can take some of the weight out of your wrists. Really press into your fingertips. Keep your low belly strong. Let that leg get nice and tired. Good big breath in. And then exhale, lunge, gentle step through between the hands. And again, surf it out on this side if you did on the other side, or stay in stillness. It's up to you. Make sure that your feet are where they need to be, though, so that you're set up for success. And if you're taking some movement, make sure you're using your breath. And then everyone start to come back into stillness, back into your strong lunge. Fire up your legs. And inhale, warrior two, lift up, back heel down. And take a moment to find your foundation on this side. So you remember the cues from the other side. I want you to think about your torso this time. So low belly draws in, find length through the tailbone. Stretch out from the arms, reach into the fingertips, but draw your shoulder blades down and back gently. Good. Let your gaze go over your front middle finger as much as it's comfortable in your neck. Sink down as you exhale. Reach forward, inhale. Exhale, extended side angle, open up. And so again, try to find that engagement through your core. Draw the low belly in, draw your ribs back, and find some length on your left side. And strong legs, nice adjustments, everyone. And on your inhale, reverse warrior, reach up into the left arm. Check in, make sure that your left knee stayed forward and in the bend. Equal weight in both feet as much as you can. Can you lift a little bit taller through your left side as you inhale, and then exhale, windmill the hands down, pick up your left foot as you take it back, high plank, half series of your choice. And push the mat away and get ready for one breath per movement through. Moving with your breath. So if I'm cueing faster or slower than you want to move, do what's right for you. Look forward. Inhale. Exhale. Forward fold. Feet to hands. Halfway lift. Inhale. Exhale. Fold. Inhale. Utkatasana. Sit back. And exhale. Fold out of it. Stretch the legs. Halfway lift. Inhale. Exhale, hands plant, step your feet back, high plank, half series. Skip it if you're at that point, but find your way back into downward facing dog. Kayla and Max are in unison here. I see their heads pop up at the same time. I love it. Right leg lifts, inhale. Exhale, lunge, step through. Inhale, warrior two. Exhale, extended side angle. Inhale, reverse warrior, reach up, stretch. Exhale, windmill the hands down, pick up your foot as you take it back. Option for your half series. Find your way back to downward facing dog. Good, strong work, everybody. I like seeing those straight lines. Left leg lifts, inhale. Exhale, lunge, step through. Inhale, warrior two. Exhale, extended side angle, open up. Inhale, reverse, reach up, stretch. And exhale, windmill the hands down. Press the mat away from you as you take your left foot back. Half series, find your way. One good thing about teaching on Zoom is I have a mute button. So when I have those weird hiccups, I can mute you all so you don't have to hear it versus a live class. All right, one more time through, skipping Utkatasana. Inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, lunge, step through. Warrior two, inhale, rise. Exhale, extended side angle, open. Inhale, reverse warrior, up and back. Exhale, hands to the mat, take it back, half series. Find your rhythm. Good work. I love seeing all the different variations. All right, left side, bring it up, left leg lift. Exhale, lunge. Warrior two, inhale, rise. Exhale, extended side angle. Inhale, reverse warrior, stretch up. And exhale, take it down to the mat, half series, find your way back. All right, once you find downward facing dog, take a couple of breaths there. Let your breath catch back up with your heart. You can wiggle it out, pedal it out, and just take a moment to take stock, take inventory of what's going on in your body at this point, see what things have shifted, what's changed. maybe nothing. And then come on down. Grab a sip of water. How we doing? Feeling okay? All right. Animals included. I love practicing with animals. My dog usually will try to like bite my hair and be ridiculous, or she just sits there and paws at me for me to pet her. Like, oh, okay. Cool. All right. So everybody's favorite, core. Can you see how excited I am about this? Super excited. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on core just for the sake of time. Okay. So we'll get started here. Supta Baddha Konasana sit-ups. So come on down to your back. Make a diamond shape with your legs, soles of the feet touch. And so press your feet together and see if you can get your low back to have a little bit less of a curve than it does right now. And so that might mean you're lifting your knees up a little bit. Good. Low belly draws in, hands come behind your neck. Elbows out of your peripheral if that feels okay. If that does not feel okay and you can manage to not crank on your neck, you can let your elbows come in. But if you're going to crank on your neck when you do this, don't do this. Okay. Take a big breath in. And as you exhale, lift your chest up off the floor. Crunch. Inhale, lower back down. And exhale, lift. And take a few of these at your pace. If you're feeling like you need a little extra oomph this morning, you can lift your feet up off the floor. But I encourage you to keep your low belly engaged so that your tailbone finds a little bit of a scoop towards the sky to keep your low belly nice and active. And take 3 more wherever you are. And then the last one, hold it in that up position and pulse for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and come on down. Big good morning stretch. Stretch your legs out in front of you or hug your knees into your chest, whatever feels best to you. And then get ready for yoga bicycles. So knees come to 90 degrees, shins parallel with the floor. Hands, once again, interlace behind the back of your neck or the back of your head, whatever's more comfortable. And you know the drill, opposite shoulder to opposite knee as your other leg extends. So take a big breath in. As you exhale, right shoulder, left knee, extend your right leg. Inhale back to center. Exhale, switch it up, other side, extend your left leg. Good. Whatever leg, I don't know, your right and your left. But take it at your pace and try to let the shoulder lead rather than your elbow. So you're working more of the full spectrum of your core rather than just one spot. Good. The higher you let your leg go, the easier this is on you. The lower your leg extends towards the floor, the harder this gets. So you do what you need. Get 2 more on each side. Nicely done. Diana's like racing for it. Good job. I'm just teasing. After your 2 on each side, draw your knees in towards your chest, gentle squeeze. Good. And then extend out, big good morning stretch. Really take up space on your mat. And stretch through your right leg and your left arm. And then relax. And then stretch through your left arm and your right leg, or whatever the opposite is that you just did. Good. Relax. Now stretch through both arms and both legs. Really press them away from you. Now draw your knees in towards your chest. And take a couple of rock and rolls. Rock yourself up to seated or roll to your side and come up to seated, whatever feels best for your body. And we'll get ready for boat, Navasana. And so find your sit bones, move the flesh if you need to, and get rooted into the bony part of your butt. And sit up tall and squeeze your low belly in, shoulder blades back. And if this is boat for you today, toes stay on the floor. That's perfect. If you want to play around with lifting your legs, you are welcome to do that. If you start to get a really strong sensation in your hip flexors, then I want you to reset, bring your toes to the floor and draw your belly in even more. Good. And breathe. Take it to whatever feels good for you today. Nice. If you're holding your jaw, let that go. It's not going to help you with boat, I promise you. Good. Can you get a little taller through your spine? Can you sit up a little bit more? Good. For 3, 2, 1, and lower down nice and slow all the way to your back. All right, once you're on your back, set up for bridge. And so draw your knees in towards your chest, feet are off the floor. Good, and then let the soles of the feet come down to the floor, about hip width distance. You may or may not be able to graze your heels with your fingertips, just depends on how long your arms are. Mine are not, so I don't ever get to do this part of it. But bring your arms down beside you. Chin stays forward. So super safety rule here. Make sure that once you get ready to lift your hips up off the floor, that you maintain space between the floor and the back of your neck. Okay, exhale everything out. And then as you inhale, press down into your feet, scoop your tailbone up and lift your hips up off the floor. And once the weight comes into your shoulders and your feet, you are welcome to walk your arms underneath your torso and interlace your hands if that feels good. Just no peeking around. Keep your neck safe. Maybe every inhale, you lift your chest towards your chin. If your chin is creeping towards your chest, reverse that. It makes a big difference. Good. One more breath. Lift up, squeeze your butt. And exhale, lower down nice and slow. And take a moment here just to release your back. So maybe you take some windshield wipers with the legs, maybe Baddha Konasana, or maybe even a happy baby, whatever feels good. So that was your speed core, because I just wanted to get you through that real fast. Normally, I would say take a little bit more time with your core section, give your students a little more time to breathe. I'm just mean today, so. Okay, whenever you're ready, rock and roll your way up to seated, grab some water. You still with me? Are we still friends? We good? Okay, some of you. Max is like, I'll still be your friend. It's fine. All right, downward facing dog, friends. Moving on. Remember, take it easy. Practice with safety in mind. So if you need breaks, if you need child's pose or any other resting pose, you are welcome to it. No need to push. And take a moment here, settle into this down dog. So really feel it out. Stretch through the back. Maybe you got a little tension in your low back through core. Maybe your heels can reach a little bit closer to the floor. Remember, it's not about having your heels touch down. We're just reaching them down, finding that extension. And then from here, right leg lifts. Inhale. Exhale, lunge. Gently step between your hands. Inhale, crescent lunge. Lift up. All right, so now before you really strongly commit to this lunge, soften your back knee for me a little bit. Draw your left outer hip forward, low belly engages. And then when you have the hips nice and forward, then engage your back leg. It may or may not be straight. And yes, absolutely, I see some people doing it already. Your back knee can come down to the floor. Good. Get tall through your spine. Big breath in. And exhale, hands to your heart. Bow forward. Get lots of length into your torso. And then revolved crescent towards the right. Left elbow might set on top of your thigh or come to the outside of it. But press your hands together strongly. Find lots of length as you inhale. And as you exhale, twist your spine. Your left hip wants to drop down, and it's okay. Just don't let it be super dramatic. Keep it as level as your body wants. Good. Find length. Get your chin off your chest. One more breath. Twist as you exhale. Good. And then inhale, rise back up, crescent lunge. Wobbles are good. You're building muscle memory. And runner's lunge from here. Hands come down inside of your right foot. Wiggle your right foot way up towards the corner of your mat. So you want your foot in front of your knee, not behind it. And then you choose. Back knee can come down to the floor. You can keep the knee lifted. And if you open up your knee, your right knee towards the side, please, please, please flex your foot. So stay safe there. Good. And then soften here. Let your jaw go. Let your neck relax. Really focus on the breath. So if you're like me and runner's lunge is like not a happy thing for you, breathe. Pay attention to sensations in your body. Pay attention to dogs sniffing your head. And just settle in here. And one more round of breath. So full breath in, create space in your body. And as you exhale, move into that space. And if you're not already, start to come up onto your hands. Back knee lifts, curl your toes. And send your right leg back, high plank. And get ready for side plank. Left hand plants under your face. And then right side lifts to the sky. Your inside knee can always come down for support here. But really press strongly into your fingertips. Take it out of your wrist a little bit, shoulders out of your ears, and really squeeze the side of your body. Good. One more breath in. Big inhale. And exhale. Hands to the mat. Take it through your half series. Find your way back. Downward facing dog. Good work. And where there's a right, there's a left side. So left leg lifts nice and long behind you. Hips are level. And then exhale, lunge, step it through. And crescent lunge. Come on up. As you inhale, lift your torso. Once again, set your foundation. So this side will probably be different than the other side. Take a moment. Once you have that strong foundation, come into the torso. Belly is strong, ribs pull back, and then Tadasana arms. So the tops of your shoulders are soft as you reach tall through the fingertips. And take another breath in, and then exhale, hands to your heart. Lengthen forward, get lots and lots of length, and then revolved crescent as you exhale towards the left. Hands pressed together. And find a nice straight line in your forearms, elbows up and away from your ribs. Shoulders out of your ears. So see if you can take, Tori, your right shoulder away from your ear. Nice adjustment. Good. One more breath. And then as you inhale, rise back up. Crescent lunge. Use your core to bring you up. And you know it, runner's lunge, hands down inside of your left foot as you exhale, wiggle your left foot out towards the corner of your mat and take what you need on this side. So maybe that means that the back knee comes down, maybe it stays lifted on this side. But once again, pay attention to those sensations without attaching too much thought, aversion, attachment to them. Simply notice, make a physical adjustment as you need to, and soften your jaw. Remember, as you breathe in, you create space in your body, and as you exhale, you can move into that space, and it's millimeter by millimeter. Next inhale, come back up onto your hands. If you're not already, lift your back knee. And then send your left leg back, high plank, push-up position. Right hand this time plants under your face, and left side lifts for side plank as you inhale. Find the variation that works for you this time. Feet are stacked or staggered or inside knee down, but squeeze the right side of your body as you press the left side towards the sky for 3, 2, 1, and come on down. Half series if you've got it in you. Nicely done. Oh, I love the variations. Good, good. All right. Getting set up for Utkatasana, which I totally just realized that I almost forgot. So look forward, inhale, exhale, forward fold at the top of your space. Halfway lift, inhale, exhale, fold and release. Utkatasana, sit back, yogi's chair. All right, so I'm going to get nerdy with chair for you, not something that you need to know by any stretch of the imagination, but I want you to feel it. So while your inner thighs squeeze in towards one another, lift and spread your toes, and then without moving your feet, scrub your feet away from each other. So you start to work the outer hips as much as the inner thighs. Good. Draw the low belly and get ready for eagle. So keep the engagement in your legs as much as you can. And then right leg comes up and over, and right arm wraps under your left arm. You can either take that second bind, wrapping the forearms, palms touch, or backs of the hands, or give yourself a yogi squeeze. Good. But lift your elbows, bring your hands away from your face, and sit deep, but stay tall in your spine. Good. Breathe. Find your drishti, your point of focus. Breathe deeply. Can you challenge yourself? Can you sit a little bit deeper and wind your legs a little bit tighter? Good. One more breath. And then on your inhale, unwind, rise up, big stretch up, extended mountain. Good. And then get ready for gorilla. Step your feet hip width distance, Padahastasana or Padangustasana, your choice. And once your feet are hip width distance, fold forward. And you can either grab onto the big toes with your peace sign fingers, palms face in, or slide your hands under your feet until your toes touch your wrist creases. Bend your knees a bunch, hang heavy for a moment. Shake your head, yes and no, no and yes. Good. And then get ready to engage. So little mini halfway lift, bend your knees, long spine. And as you exhale, pull down, bend your elbows out to the sides. Good. As your belly presses towards your thighs try to press back as you lift your tailbone. Good. Reach the crown of the head down. You can find movement here and flow through this, lifting halfway and then pulling, or stay static, whatever works for you. Nice. So you got one more full round of breath here. Full breath in and a full breath out. Release the hands from your feet. Lift halfway, inhale. And exhale, hands to the mat. Step your feet back. Half series if you want it. Upward facing dog might feel really nice here after compressing. But downward facing dog as you're ready. Good job. All right, you got one more side here. Look forward, inhale. Exhale, forward fold, feet to hands. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, fold and release. Utkatasana, once again, sit down into your chair. Remember, find your foundation so the weight drops back into your heels, your toes are soft. Engage your outer hips, that'll help with your stability. And then left leg wraps up and over, eagle on this side, left arm underneath. And where you bound your forearms on one side, you may not be doing it on this side. That's okay. Find what works for you. Sit up tall, belly is strong, ribs pull back. Nice bell, good adjustment. Elbows lift, hands away from your face and breathe. Challenge yourself in the stillness, in the balance to make those little micro movements here. Sit a little bit deeper for your last breath. Good. And then inhale, big stretch up, unwind. If it feels good, little back bend at the top. And then arms down to your sides. So now I know you get a little bit kind of off the beaten path here with this. So normally when you're teaching this, you can either, depending on how much time you have, you can take your students through a half series or just have them come right down and get into crow. So if you're feeling like crow and you want to practice crow, go for it. I'll help you with some tips and cues and things like that. But for the sake of time, I want to get you into triangle so you can feel that in your body. But if you're playing with crow, remember, fingers are spread wide, elbows bend back, not out to the sides. Gaze is forward, so you make that triangle with the hands and the gaze. Good, yes. And if you feel like you're going to fall, you can land on your head or somersault out of it. All right. Good work. All right, how are we feeling? Feeling pretty good? All right, so I'm going to move you into triangle from here. So take a moment, grab a sip of water, whatever you need, and then back into downward facing dog, and I'll get you through triangle so you can feel it, and then we'll break down the new poses, okay? We'll take a break after this though, I promise. All right. Downward facing, DFD. Okay, find your breath. So deep breath in through the nose, full breath out through the nose. And take 2 more just like that. And feel yourself settle into your downward dog. Find all those little pockets of stress and see if you can tell them to hold on for a moment. Good. Right leg lifts, inhale. Exhale, lunge, gentle step through between the hands. Inhale, warrior 2, lift up. And so we've been here before. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Just get your stance figured out. So feet are at a pretty good distance away from each other. And then from here, exhale, straighten into your front knee. So bring it towards straight with a slight micro bend. Maybe lift and spread your toes. Reach forward as you inhale as far as you can. And then tick-tock into triangle, arms at 12 and 6. Good. And so it's not necessarily about touching the ground. If you touch the ground, great. If you don't touch the ground, great. But I want you to find length through your torso here. Take a quick peek down. Make sure that your right knee is following the same direction as your right toes. If it's not, let your left hip fall in just a little bit. But engage the legs. Stay strong through the core. And then on your inhale, lift your torso up, adjust your feet into a 5-pointed star. And so arms stretch out, take up space, feet are parallel or hip width, or not, no, don't pay any attention to me. Parallel or slightly pigeon-toed in, depending on what's going on in your hips. And get ready for wide leg forward fold, Prasarita Padottanasana. As you exhale, hinge from the hips, lead with the heart, fold forward. Hands can come down to the floor in front of you. They can come down to your legs, ankles, feet, whatever is comfortable. But I want you to find the trajectory of your stretch here. So bring the weight slightly forward towards the ball of the foot. The heel stays anchored. And low belly draws in. If you're super, super tight today, bend your knees a little bit. So give yourself that little release. And if this is super easy for you and you're really bendy today, engage your inner thighs. Try to pull your feet in towards one another like your mat is coated in honey. Let your head relax down towards the floor. And then as you're ready, arms tee out to the sides and rise back up, 5-pointed star. And exhale, warrior 2, face the front of your space. Breathe in and exhale, windmill the hands down to the mat. Take it through a half series if you choose. Skip it if that's better. Downward facing dog as you're ready. All right. And do it again on the other side. Left leg lift. Inhale. Exhale, lunge, gentle step through. Warrior 2. Inhale, rise up. And check out your stance. So make sure that your stance stays nice and long. Left toes point forward, followed by your left knee. And then exhale, straighten into your left knee. Keep that micro bend, so avoid hyperextending. And then reach really far forward. Get long as you inhale. And exhale, triangle Utthita Trikonasana. And so you know the legs, keep the legs strong and powerful, but I want you to draw your low belly in, get strong through the belly. And roll the shoulders down the back. So think of warrior 2 in your arms. Your arms reach, but your shoulder blades pull back. Take one more breath here. And then as you inhale, once again, lift your torso, adjust your feet, setting up for horse. So turn your feet so that your toes point out to the corners of your mat. You might need to step your feet in a little bit, depending on what's going on with your hips, your inner thighs today. And then sit down into horse or goddess pose. Bend your knees and take a peek down. Before you sit really deep into it, make sure that your knees are pointed in the same direction as your toes. So that might mean you need to adjust the depth of your bend. You might need to pull your knees out a little bit more, or you might need to turn your toes in. Good, but draw your low belly in, length through the low back. Good, ribs pull back. Hands can hold imaginary pizzas, or you can bring them to your heart, whatever feels best. But imagine you're sitting up against the wall. So imagine that I've got my hand right between your shoulder blades and you're pushing back into me. So you really want to get strong. Sit down a little bit deeper. Smile a whole lot, because horse is one of those things that you either love it or hate it, or you love to hate it. Good. Now, sit down the deepest you can as you exhale, and then strong legs. Bring yourself up. Inhale, 5-pointed star. Reach up, stretch, take up space, and then warrior 2. Once again, face the front of the room. Pause for a breath in, and then exhale. Windmill the hands down to the mat. Step it back, high plank. Take it through your half series. Find downward facing dog, and then once you get there, come on down. You are done. So see, it seems like triangle, like even just teaching it right now, I'm like, there has to be something more, but there's not. That's it. That's triangle series. Okay. So we are learning triangle, wide leg forward fold, and horse today. Okay. So those are the 3 poses that are going to be new to you in terms of learning them. So talk to me. Tell me how that felt, how that went for you. Did things connect? Did I confuse you more? And know that I'm not very, you're sore. Yeah, I bet you are. I deal with like a lot of, I've got like a whole spinal hip thing, and I feel you. Like my butt and my whole right leg are just not happy with me today. So, but I'm not like super formal, so you don't have to raise your hand. If you have something to say, please just unmute yourself and tell me what you want to say, okay?
So in 5-pointed star, our feet are not like tick-tocked outwards. They're either parallel or in a little bit, you said?
No, that's just to set you up for the wide forward fold. 5-pointed star is, it's just kind of that, it's like a transitional pose. We'll talk about it a little bit more. It's just really a transitional pose that, you know, your feet don't have to be any particular way for our purposes, right? When I say feet parallel, that's more to set you up for the wide legged forward fold. And we'll talk about the whys behind that.
Thanks.
Oh, good, Jenny. I'm glad. I'm glad it felt good to move. Cool. All right. Well,
I have a quick question. Where was the 5-pointed star? Or that was after horse goddess, is that right?
Yeah. So it's just a transition to get you out of triangle. It's not going to be listed in your poses.
Right.
It's not going to be listed in your list. It's just a transition to get you out of triangle into either wide-legged forward fold or horse.
Into it. So it's before it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You bet. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Kayla, I bet that was not super fun. Horse is one of those things, or goddess is one of those things that like my body just doesn't like because of what's going on with my hip. So yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Anything else? Anybody else want to add anything? Okay. All right. Well,
Sorry.
okay.
I just really like how we're combining like the direct studying of like little chunks, but then it feels really good to feel the whole thing in the body, because then it comes so much more naturally, for me at least. And then I really like the holding the pizza metaphor. I wanted to rub my belly when you said that.
That's awesome. Yeah, you know, when I was in teacher training, and I don't know if Sam, you did extended, so you had it a little bit differently. Like Samantha, when you're in extended, it's all in like one weekend chunk, right? So she learned the whole thing. No? Oh, you were before that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you were before that happened. But you know, I know when I went through teacher training, it was the same thing. It was like we're learning everything in sections and chunks, and they feel like separate, and it doesn't feel really connected. So for me, when I was learning, it was really important for me to have it all put together so that I can, you know, like you said, feel it all in your body, all as one fluid thing. So, so yeah, I was hoping that that would help you connect the dots a little bit more too. Um, some breath work. Yeah. Good try. Good job. Good job. Okay, so let's take a little break before we dive into our 3 poses, because even though it's only 3 poses, there's a lot going on with them, a lot of safety stuff. So I want you to be fresh. So let's take 10 minutes. So come back at no, not 3:40. Where is my mind? 10:40. And we'll go over triangle series, okay? All right. I'm gonna turn my camera off for a minute and we'll be back. So Caleb, is your the stuff in your knee coming from your hip? Is that what the PT thinks, or?
So they think it's both directional upwards and downwards. So
Gotcha.
they've really dug into the tendons behind the knee and into the calf, and then even into my ankle.
Yeah.
So they've been doing work, applying pressure, scraping, and certain exercises also upward to my hip. And then like I was doing a lot of Warrior 3 yesterday at physical therapy. Like he was like,
Yeah.
let's do Warrior. We're going to do Warrior 3 to build up your outer glute, your inner glute, your hips. And yeah, one of my hips is higher than the other.
Yep.
My right is higher than the other, which is very common because we sleep on one side. We favor one side. One side is more muscular. But yeah, it's other areas other than the knee that we're working on to strengthen behind there.
Yeah.
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 It's really fascinating.
It is. Yeah. I'm sorry that you're dealing with all that, but like I'm like a body nerd and
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. So
Whatever
yeah,
we're doing,
I've got-
it's working.
good. I'm glad it's working. Yeah, I've been fighting a like 4-year battle with my right hip and all kinds of stuff, and now I'm at the point where I'm afraid I have a labral tear, and it's like, yay,
Oh,
awesome. So, oh well.
we'll get
I'm
through
trying-
it. Yoga
Yeah.
helps
Yeah.
tremendously.
It's like my darn kid broke me. It's like he literally broke my back, but whatever. That's how
Oh,
it goes. That's how it goes.
crazy.
Cool. How are you all feeling? You feeling ready to dive in and learn now? All right, good. Because yeah, like I said, 3 poses. Although they're meaty poses, and I'm actually really excited that I get to do this because they're like my favorite yoga poses. I love triangle. It's like the one thing that feels really good in my hip and everything like that. So yeah, so I love talking about it. Now, before we dive in, I want you to know, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, once you get to like Utkatasana and on, you have a lot more kind of creative leeway with the sequence, right? And this is where I students will start to get a little bit confused, and they'll start to get their lines crossed a little bit, because up until that point you had very clear inhales and exhales, and everything is in a very specific sequence. And that's not to say that it's not from Utkatasana on, but this is where you have more opportunity to adjust for either time, like if you're going too fast or too slow, you have a little bit more time to adjust for that. You can add certain aspects or take out certain aspects, just depending on where you are time wise. So know that, like, as you start to do this and as you start to practice and put the sequence together and you start to practice teach, you're going to get to a point where you're like, okay, wait, do we do a half series here or do we not do a half series here? What's the difference and how do we work this? The half series, particularly in triangle, I'm going to show you the 2 different ways that you can do this, depending on how much time you have. As you're getting towards the end of class, you can omit half series, you can keep it, things like that. Ideally, the sequence would stay the way it is, but in the event that you're going too fast or too slow, you have options here to add and take things out. Mostly the half series, right? So it could be a situation where, let's say you get through crow and everybody was like going gung-ho on crow and they wanted to hold it and try all kinds of different variations, because that happens. Like, you say arm balances in a power class and people are going to be like, yep, I'm doing those, and they're going to hang out in them for either a long time or they're going to be like, not today, not doing it. And you'll be like, okay, nobody's going to do anything. So now I have time to do things. Okay. So know that those real world situations are going to come up for you. So we can either, Samantha, are you feeling good to practice a little bit? Can I teach you through the 2 different variations real quick? Okay. So I'm gonna teach Samantha through so you can see what I'm talking about when I say the two different variations. So if you would start in downward facing dog when you got yourself situated. So now you can do like we did when I led you through, where you do the right side. So yeah, warm up a little bit. Don't get yourself all jammed into it. All right, doing a funky dance on there. Okay, so inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, lunge, step through. Inhale, warrior two, back heel spins down, arms tee out. So just take a moment to set up your stance, get ready for triangle, and then straighten into your front leg, reach really far forward. Exhale, Utthita Trikonasana, triangle pose. And so 1, 2, 3 breaths in that. And then inhale, lift your torso, rotate your right foot, 5-pointed star. And set up your feet for a wide fold. So either parallel with the short edges of the mat or pigeon toe if your back is feeling it today. Find length as you inhale. And exhale, bow forward, wide-legged forward fold. Prasarita Padottanasana. I'm going to let you hang out there for a breath or two before I pull you out so you don't hurt yourself. So 3 to 5 breaths here. And then inhale, rise back up, 5-pointed star. Warrior two, face the front of the mat. Breathe in. Then exhale, hands to the mat, half series if you want it, or you can just step right back into down dog, Sam. It's up to you. Good. And then so she went through half series, and then left side. Inhale, left leg lifts. I'll even you out. I'll get you through quick. Exhale, warrior two. Oh, no, exhale, lunge, and then warrior two, unless you're going to do something fancy there. So inhale, warrior two, back heel spins down. I get ahead of myself. Get yourself set up for triangle. So straighten into the front knee, reach really far forward, and 12 and 6, triangle pose. Hang out for 1, 2, 3, 4 breaths. And then inhale, lift your torso, rise up. Turn your feet, setting up for horse. So point your toes to the edge, the corners of your mat. And as you exhale, bend your knees a lot or a little bit, wherever you're comfortable. And then we'll hang out there for 1, 2, 3, 4 breaths. And inhale, rise back up, straighten the legs. Exhale, warrior two. Pause for a breath in. And then half series, hands to the mat. Take it back, downward facing dog. So that's option one. So if you're good on time, you're solid on time, everything's working out, that is what you'll stick with. If you are like, oh my gosh, I got to get this in a shorter amount of time, you can do it this way. So from downward facing dog. All right, inhale, right leg lift. Exhale, lunge, step through. Warrior two, inhale, lift up. And straighten into your front knee, reach really far forward, triangle pose. 1, 2, 3, 4 breaths. Inhale, rise up, 5-pointed star, turn your feet. Set up for a wide fold, parallel or pigeon toe in, and then fold it forward. Good job. Take it for 1, 2, 3, 4 breaths. And then inhale, rise back up, 5-pointed star. Now this time, this is where we get different. So we're going to cut out the half series and down dog. So warrior two, face the back of the room. Turn your left toes. Yeah, there you go. So warrior two on the left side. And then straighten into your front knee. Reach really far forward. And then triangle, 12 and 6. Good. Hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4 breaths. And then rise up, torso lifts. And turn your feet, set up for horse, goddess pose, toes point out towards the corners, sit down into it for a couple of breaths there, make them do all kinds of fun stuff. Rise up, 5-pointed star. Warrior two, face the front of the room. Pause for a breath in, and then half series, take it through. So do you see where you can shift that a little bit? So depending on where you are time-wise in class, if you're solid and you're on track to finish class on time, you'll keep those half series from right side to left side. if you're like, oh my gosh, I spent way too much time in crow or whatever, then you can adjust with that half series omission. Okay. So that's where I'm saying you have those little bits of creative leeway there. Okay. So that's where the confusion will start to come in. So make sense? Sound good? Jenny, go ahead.
I'm sure this is covered in a future class. Do we eventually go through and you'll say, okay, you should spend 6 minutes on integration and this much on this so that we like can time ourselves, or?
Good question. So I'll tell you right now. Generally speaking, by the time you hit the half-hour mark, you should be finished or finishing up with core, moving into you're already into Crescent series. Okay. And when you have about 15 minutes left, you should be somewhere in Triangle series, making your way towards Spine, Hips, and Surrender. So I'm not going to give you exact numbers because any number of things can happen in class. And I know Samantha can attest to this. You know, you might, have a really strong plan and then, you have a hard time motivating people for core, or the stereo is doing wacky things and you need to deal with that. Or you have someone in class decide to kick up into a handstand and fall out of it in a really packed class and knock out your adjuster. Like you have all kinds of things happening. These are real life things that have happened to me. So any number of things can happen. So for me to say, yes, you're going to spend this exact amount of time on this section is not really realistic. So, plus you want to be able to make those adjustments, right? Like if people are like gasping for breath and begging for mercy after core, you want to have time to give them that break, right? To let them catch their breath, to let them get some water. If people are really either struggling or want a lot of instruction in crow, you want to have the time to allot to spend with them. So you have to be able to adjust accordingly. Does that make sense? Okay, so the best time references that I can give you is that half-hour mark and your 15-minute or 45-minute mark. And then generally you want to spend between 3 and 5 minutes in Shavasana. Okay, so good. I'm glad it helps. What else? What other questions have come up for you since then? Okay, we're good. Oh, Belle, go ahead.
So if you press for time and you omit the half series in triangle, you still do both sides of the pose through, right?
Oh, always.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah, always. Really, the half series from Utkatasana to the end of the series is going to be at this point, like that's going to be the best thing for you to, shift things and make room for time, because every pose in the sequence has a purpose. Okay, every pose in the sequence has a purpose, whether it's its own purpose or whether it's prepping you for another pose that comes later on. They all have a purpose and they're all there very specifically. So to say, well, I'm pressed for time, so I'm going to cut out this whole series is not really going to benefit your students. The half series, you've done, by the time you get to like Utkatasana, you've done quite a few of those. So you can start to whittle those out, things like that. So that's really where you're going to be able to make up or add on time. You can have them do an extra half series if you're like, well, crap, now I'm about to end class at the 45-minute mark. So you can have them do extra half series. You can have them hold poses for longer. Like when we get into triangle and things like that, holding poses for a little bit longer sometimes is nice, especially if up to that point you've been going really fast and like doing the whole rapid fire thing. So again, this is where you're going to be able to get a little bit creative with it. So I don't want you to kind of go off the rails and like, get too concerned about, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do that? And I want you to start thinking more in terms of actually teaching the class and really seeing what it is that your students need. Okay, cool. All right. So moving on, let's talk about, I'm going to pull up the sequence. So if you're following along with the sequence, I'm starting right on triangle pose, since it's the new pose that we're learning first off. And so we have some transitional cues with this to get you into the actual pose of triangle. You want to say it? Do you want to say the Sanskrit? Anybody? I mean, I'm sure you heard me say it, but does anybody want to take a stab at saying it out loud to me and the group?
Utthita Trikonasana.
Close. Really good. So it's a Trikonasana. Good, good. Yeah. So Utthita Trikonasana. I love the Konasana because it's like that O sound. You have to really make the O shape with your mouth. Okay. Utthita Trikonasana. And so with this, obviously we start you off, we get you into a warrior two pose. Okay. So you're in warrior two, your feet are going to be in the same stance as in warrior two, except this time you'll straighten the front leg. And I'm sure you heard me mention about keeping the micro bend in the front leg. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then reach forward and reach arms up and down. So that seems like a lot. Generally, when you say triangle, people know where the arms go. So you reach forward and then reach the arms up and down, or tick-tock the arms, okay? Anybody have any ideas as to why we reach forward before we just tick-tock the arms into triangle? Katie, I saw your hand first.
Is that to keep length in the side body?
Yeah, for sure. What else? Flo, I saw you having an idea about something there. No?
I was going to say the same, just lengthening the spine.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. So yeah, it's about keeping length on the side of the body, the bottom half of the body, right? So whatever side is facing the floor, it's about keeping length there, but it's also about helping to keep the trajectory of the hips stable. So that way, when you reach forward, so imagine this is your hips right here, and this is your spine, right? So when you bend forward, you're not bending the spine. You're reaching forward, you're ticking the hips, and then the spine can follow. So it stays more of a neutral stance. I mean, you're going to have some curvature in the spine regardless, right? Because your spine is attached to your hips. So it's just more about keeping everything in line for safety. So now when we talk about cues, who here has ever heard the cue in triangle to smush yourself between two panes of glass? Or stack your top hip on top of your left hip, or bottom hip, however it might be. Yeah. Okay. So Jenny, have you ever tried to do that, Jenny? And like, does it feel okay in your body? Right? Yeah. It throws you off balance, first of all. And then much like Warrior Two, our bodies just don't work that way, right? Our bodies do not do that. So if you hear a teacher tell you to smush yourself between two panes of glass, don't do it. Roll your eyes, give them a funny look, don't do it. And I'm sure you had Amber for Sun B, right? So I'm sure she went over the back hip on Warrior Two. The same thing applies for triangle, okay? So just like in Warrior Two, the front knee is more important than what's going on in the back hip. Okay, so for safety's sake, we want to make sure that the knee points in the same direction as your toes, as your hip. So you want that straight line from, and I'm going to try to stand up here and do it. I'm going to unplug this. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So the volume, my computer gets funky when I have too many things going on. So the volume might start going up and down, but I want to show you just for, the sake of safety. So when we come into triangle, we start off in warrior two, right? So my knee is pointed in the same direction as my toes, and it's in line with my hip point, right? So if I were to try to square myself or smush myself between two panes of glass, my knee turns in, my hip point turns in. No good for the trajectory of my hips. So I want to keep this straight, and then from there, straighten into the front knee, and then reach really far forward. So if you're watching what happens in my hips, I go from here with my legs straight to reaching. I start to teeter my hips, but my left hip continues to fall forward. And then I come into 12 and 6. So if someone were to give me the cue or try to adjust me into that hips, smush yourself between two panes of glass, I'm going to be doing this. My knee turns in a funky direction. I can't get the length in my spine that I need. So it's more important to keep the knee forward, pointed in the same direction as my feet, as my hip, than it is to have my left hip come forward. So does that make sense? Can you see what's happening in the body when that happens? So that's a big, big, big safety thing. We always want to make sure that we're not talking about squaring the hips to the side. We're more concerned about the front leg and letting the back hip do what it's going to do. Okay. Let me plug back in so I don't feel like I have to scream at you all. All right.
Would it also be appropriate to cue knee, toes, and sits bones in line? That's one of the things that we were given for Warrior 2, just to help them like visualize like the center of their like hip and like thigh rather than like the outside of their hip.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, you can do that. So sit bone with the center of the knee and the foot, just like in Warrior 2. The top hip is going to turn in to some extent, but when you really focus on getting that set up for safety first, then you can work engaging the low belly, which will naturally have an effect of lengthening the tailbone. And it might turn the top hip a little bit, but it's still going to keep you safely aligned in the front leg. So really what we're looking for is that Warrior 2 stance to set up for safety. Front knee is in line with the toes, and the lower side body lengthens. And the reason why that's one of the cues is because I'll show you from the side. I think I can do it with this headset. So when we come from the side, if you get the length and then you just kind of forget about the top half of your body and you worry about reaching to the floor, you get that squeeze on the bottom half of the body, right? So you're not super engaged. So it's more about lengthening and finding length there, and then rotating the heart slightly upwards. Okay, so it's not even like a big twisting movement. It's more so just keeping everything engaged rather than focusing so much on the legs that the rest of the body goes slack. Does that make sense? Okay. Arm stack with the front arm inside the shin. And again, to help, you can always put a block on the floor. Bottom hand comes on the block. I'm looking at some of the adjustments here. And you can rest your front hand on your shin, just not on your knee. You don't want to put that backwards pressure on your knee, okay? One really cool little trick for people that might be hyperextending in their front knee is to have them lift and spread the toes on their front leg. And that engagement, just that little lift, engages the whole leg. And so when you do that, that makes it so that you're not just stacking your joints and sinking into the joint, you're activating the whole leg so that it takes that little bit of hyperextension out of the knee, okay? Does anyone here really hyperextend that you know of? Sometimes you don't know about it. Tori, yeah, Max? Okay. So the next time you come into triangle, then I want you to try that, to lift and spread your toes so that it engages the front leg. Okay. All right. So I know you tried it already when I led you through it, but I'm going to have you all stand up and come into a warrior two stance for me. Whatever leg you want forward, doesn't matter to me. You'll get a chance to do both legs. Okay, and so I want you to really feel out your warrior two. Make sure that your front knee presses towards your front middle 3 toes. And feel how it feels to let your back hip turn in a little bit. Good. Now sink into it. And then straighten into your front knee. So press it towards straight. And then once you get there, lift and spread your toes. And feel how that engages the leg. Really press the leg into the mat. Press your foot into the mat. And then reach really far forward, as far as you can. And when you've gone as far as you can, go a little bit more. Good. And then arms at 12 and 6. So keep the legs strong and engaged. Take a look down. Make sure that your knee is pointed in the same direction as your toes. And your sit bone is in line with your knee and your toes. Okay, so adjust your back hip as you need to. And then draw your low belly in. Feel your tailbone lengthen just a little bit. And really reach out. So stretch as if you're trying to touch the floor and the ceiling, but then draw your shoulder blades back towards one another. Good, and breathe. Okay, and then come back up. Take a little 5-pointed star, shake it out a little bit. And then cue yourself on your other side. And so cue yourself into warrior two and into triangle, using what you know and the sensations in your own body. Cool. And hold that triangle for as long as you did on the other side. Just get even on the both sides. Cool. And then once you're done, come on back. All right. So how does triangle feel? Do you like it? What are some things that, talk to me about some things that maybe you've done in the past that may or may not work for you. That's okay, Caleb. You're good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So whenever we like straighten our leg and then stretch out and then TikTok the arms, I feel like some sort of engagement in like up here, like upper ribs, or what is that called? Like maybe intercostal type of thing. Am I doing it wrong? Like, am I engaging my core in a funny way? Should I be feeling that?
Does it hurt?
No, it definitely doesn't hurt, but I just feel like it's like doing stuff, like working this side when I'm like over in it. And I'm just not sure if maybe I'm holding my torso funny or if that's totally cool.
So here's the thing. If it doesn't hurt, it's probably not doing anything damaging. When I'm looking at your triangle, I don't see anything funky. You might just be really stretching out. And so it sounds to me like it's serratus muscles. So the muscles underneath your shoulder blade that come out and like hug your ribs, right?
Yep.
So when you reach out, right? And so it could be coming from the movement in your arms, right? Not so much the movement in the spine. So when you hold your arms out and then draw them back in, that really engages the serratus muscles. So like, think of your shoulder blades, right? When you stretch your arms out to the sides, your shoulder blades have a tendency to move out this way. But when you pull them back in and down to stay active through the upper back, that engages the serratus muscle that comes out from underneath the shoulder blade.
Okay, so it's not like a
like
bad
that.
thing. Okay, cool. Because I was
If it
definitely
doesn't
feeling
hurt.
that. Because I mean, I've done the position thousands of times, but I guess like today I really actually just like looked at it, like every bit of it, and I was just like, why does that happen? I've never noticed that. Probably always has, and I just But okay, cool. Just making sure I'm doing it all right.
Yeah. When you really sit down and you focus on alignment and making sure that everything is, you know, where it needs to be for safety, you start to feel different things. And that's good. I want you to feel those things, because when you feel those things and you're able to kind of think about it and, you know, ask questions about it, that's what's really going to inform your teaching for your students, right? So get to feel these things in your body so that when your student comes to you and is like, what should I be feeling in this? Then you can explain it and break it down. So I'm actually glad that you have that. But yeah, I think just from what I can tell from what you're explaining, it sounds like it's serratus muscles just from that pulling in motion. Cool. Anything else? Tori, go ahead.
I really like the cue to lift your toes up without hyperextending your knees, since that's something I've always fought with in this pose. Is I've had in the past to make a conscious effort to keep some bend in my knee, since otherwise it pops in and out and I lose my balance. When I'm on my toes though, I have a really bad habit of like putting more pressure on the outside edge of my foot. Is that anything I should be very mindful of to not do?
So like when you're standing on your toes, you have that tendency?
Or when I'm like not on my toes, my ankles rotate. I'm very pigeon-toed. So
Gotcha.
the outside edge of my foot is a lot stronger than the inside edge of my foot. Is that something I need to be mindful of too, just to keep like all four corners of my feet on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of the reverse of that, I'm really flat foot. So for me, lifting and spreading my toes means that I'm not falling on the inside edge of my foot. So normally my feet, like instead of being nice and flat and even, my feet will fall in like this. Be careful to push down on the inside edge, whereas I have to focus on pushing on the outside edge. So yeah, make sure that you're not, you know, over relying on one side of the foot. Sam, please
I like
add.
the cue in triangle to press down into the big toe mound. It also activates my leg, but keeps that balance in between the pinky toe and the big toe, because I have that same issue that I roll out.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, anytime you do any kind of standing pose with the foot, you want to make sure that all four corners of the foot are engaged and rooted down. Good question. I like that. Diana, go ahead.
I've been told before, I used to try and reach for the ground, and I've been told to make a straight line from my head to toe, like the side of my body, a straight line. Is that something that you would say too?
It depends. It depends on the student. It depends on your arm length. It depends on your leg length and all of that. So it really depends. Like it's hard to tell. I don't know how tall you are, but I'm like 5'3" on a good day.
I was bent over, like, so my body was like, dun, dun, you know, instead of being straight, you know what I mean?
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So you were getting that curve on the side that's facing the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking more of reaching the ground than I was of straightening, like having a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that you would cue maybe as like straight line from your head to your toe, or no?
Yeah, it would be more so of like keeping the spine more neutral rather than, you know, like keeping the side of the body long, rather than, because that rainbow shape can get problematic, right? Because you start to sink into the hip, right?
Okay.
And you kind of, so think of it this way, right? And I'm going to show you here. Hang on, let me. So think of it more so like, right, if I'm standing here and I'm not in line with my hips and I'm kind of just like sticking one hip out, that's what happens in triangle when you're not engaged and keeping the side of the body long. So if I'm not keeping my side body long in triangle, I'm going to try to do this without getting tweaked, but so like if I come in and I'm reaching the ground and I'm more so finding that rainbow shape on this side, this hip is just like jutting out, right? And I'm not really engaged in this hip. So if I were to lengthen out, engage my core and really push into the ground, it's just a much stronger
and more stable thing where I'm engaged in this hip. This hip is engaged because I've got to hold myself steady. This hip is engaged because I've got to keep myself from falling over. And then my core is engaged, holding my torso up, and I can do any number of things with my arms and my body stays in one shape. Whereas if I'm not engaged and I'm reaching down, if I move my arms, I start to wobble, right? Like I'm
Right.
starting to a little bit off kilter. So it's really safer for your spine to keep a nice long spine. I don't want to say straight, right? Because that kind of gives the illusion that we want your spine to be completely straight without any curvature. And that's just not realistic, right? There's always going to be some curvature, but it's more so of keeping the side body long. Does that make more sense?
So that's how you would cue that. If you saw somebody doing that, you would say lengthen both side bodies.
Yep, absolutely. Kind of like an extended side angle.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, let me plug back in. Go ahead, Christian.
So just kind of a follow-up on that, because I used to get really confused. I think I did both this and the extended side angle wrong for a long time, just with the hips and arms and everything. But so my understanding is this and the extended side angle are basically the same, except you're keeping your leg less bent in the triangle and you're keeping more of the lunge in the extended side angle. But the side body should be generally the same. The arms are generally the same. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, generally. I mean, think about your hips though too, right? Because your hips are going to change. When you straighten the leg and you reach forward, it changes the level of the hips too. So the hips are at a more of an angle in triangle than they are in extended side angle.
But you're still trying to direct them forward.
Mm-hmm.
Not turn them out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So why do we do triangle? What's going on? Why are we doing it at this point in the game? Any ideas? So think about what's happening in your body. What part of your body is opening or stretching? And then what comes next in the series that you might be prepping your body for? No ideas? Yeah, getting ready for goddess and horse. So triangle, you're really, it's prepped for pigeon, it's prepped for wide leg forward fold. Think about all the things that you just did, right? So you're coming from eagle, okay? So when you're in eagle, your inner thighs are squeezing towards one another, right? It's really compressive. And when we move into triangle, it's more so, radiating outwards, more opening. So you're opening up your inner thighs. You're getting your side bodies ready for pigeon and for twisting, for supine twisting, right? Your hips are getting ready for pigeon. You're working into that wide forward fold. So when you move into that wide forward fold, you want to make sure that your inner thighs are nice and prepped for it. So triangle is a great prep for that. Okay. And also, thinking about, crescent lunge and then Utkatasana, like I said, with eagle, your inner thighs are squeezing and you're compressing in, but also the same thing with crow. So even though your knees are coming to the backs of your arms in crow, you're still squeezing, right? You still have to have that compressive force within the body for crow. So now in triangle, you're getting to counter all of that. So it's more of that outward energy. So what Vayu is that? You had Vayus with Amber, right? Oh, the wheels are turning now. Katie, you got to unmute yourself. Talk to me.
I'm trying to sound it out to myself. Is it the Vayu or Vayu? I don't know, the one that's on the outside of the body that goes poo?
Which one is that?
Bayuri?
Viana.
Viana. That's why I stayed on mute when I was thinking those things.
It's all right. I'll catch you. I'll catch you. You got to sound it out. You got to work it out because I'm sure the rest of your friends are trying to work it out. So yeah, good work. Yeah, so you're getting your body ready for all of that stuff, and the inner thighs need some love too. Okay. All right. So now when we talk about adjustments with this, so if we're ever able to get back in person, adjusting with this, I don't ever push on people's hips or do anything funky like that. It's triangle is one of those things that, having the person work with the adjustment is really nice. So what you can do is when they get into triangle, stand behind them. Now, it all depends on height and all of that. So you get behind them and you bring your palm to their palm and have them press into you, right? And so when they press into you and you hold that steady and you've got that resisting force, it helps them to engage the side bodies. So that way they're getting that self-engagement. So when you're not able to touch someone, tell them, you can verbally explain this. Imagine that I'm high-fiving you, right? Imagine that you're pressing your top hand into the wall in front of you, or something along those lines. So they get that movement of, oh, I want to engage my core rather than just like falling back into triangle, because you'll see that a lot in triangle where people will get into it and then they start to rotate open this way into triangle. And while that's not necessarily wrong, it's taking a lot of the strength and the foundation out of triangle. Does that make sense? So the next time you're in triangle, visualize somebody giving you a high five. Excuse me, got weird hiccups again. All right. The other thing you can do is, a lot of times what'll happen, especially like if you think about Warrior 2 or extended side angle, things like that, what'll happen is one of the feet starts to lose connection with the ground. So in things like extended side angle and triangle, it's generally the back foot. So a good thing to remind students, if you're able to physically touch, you can always push into the back foot with your foot, kind of like just line your foot up next to theirs and have them push into your foot, or just remind them, press into the pinky toe edge of your back foot, okay? Because when the legs are separated and you have the back leg back, a lot of times what happens is you tend to fall on the inside, on the inner edge of your back foot. And so reminding them to press down into the pinky toe edge of the back foot is a really good reminder. And it'll help to energize the outside of the leg, not just working into the stretch on the inside of the leg. Okay. Questions, comments? All right. How are we doing? Ready to move on to wide-legged forward fold? Okay. Anybody want to take a stab at the Sanskrit on this one? Unmuted. Flo, go ahead.
Pull it back up. Prasarita Padottanasana.
Put the emphasis on the second A, prasarita. So prasarita Padottanasana. You'll hear it, prasarita. Prasarita. But it's prasarita Padottanasana. Okay. And so with this, now it's not in your list. It's not in your posture list, the 5-pointed star transition. But sometimes it's just easier to say from triangle, inhale, 5-pointed star, because most of the time students know what that is. Okay. So inhale, you can say inhale back to standing, turn the front foot towards the long edge of the mat, lengthen the spine, exhale, hinge at the hips, right? So all of those, all that to say, Inhale, 5-pointed star. Set up for wide forward fold. So now with wide forward fold, the feet can either be parallel to the short edges of the mat, or you can be pigeon-toed in slightly so that your toes turn in and your heels point out a little bit. That, if someone is experiencing some sort of low back issues or sciatica issues, they'll want to keep their feet parallel to one another. So if you think about it, when you have your feet pigeon-toed, right? So feet are parallel. My hip points are pointing forward. My femurs are in their natural position. When I push my heels out, now the heads of my femurs have turned in slightly. So if I have any kind of sciatica, which is the sciatic nerve comes out of the low back through the muscles of the glutes and down the leg, if I've turned my hips, if I've turned my feet, it turns my femurs, and it could put more stress on the muscles in the butt, like the piriformis, which would then put more strain on the sciatic nerve. So if someone is having any kind of sciatic issues, you want to have them keep their feet parallel. So the way that I usually will cue that is feet parallel, or if your low back is feeling good, you can pigeon toe your feet in. Okay, so you kind of give them both options. And then from there, lengthen the spine with a neutral neck, and then hinge at the hips. Weight stays in the balls of the feet. That doesn't mean that the heels are lifted. It just means that the weight is equally distributed front to back. And then hands to the floor or ankles or blocks, whatever works, okay? Talk to me about any of your thoughts around why we want to keep the feet towards the ball, or keep the weight towards the ball of the foot rather than in the heels. And if you need to stand up and feel the difference, please do. So if you come into it, if you're trying it out, if you're feeling it in your body, come into that wide fold, keep the weight back so that your butt kind of sinks back a little bit. And then bring it forward. Keeps your hips forward. But why?
To me, it felt like when I rocked back on my heels, it put a lot more pressure on my knees.
Yep, that's exactly it. And so, yeah, Katie, exactly the same thing. So when you keep the weight forward in towards the ball of the foot, yep, more pressure on your low back, absolutely. It keeps the ankle, the knee, and the hip lined up so that the stretch is more in the belly of the muscle. So like Katie said, you're feeling a hamstring stretch. Whereas if the weight is back, you're putting the stress into the joints. So you're going to feel it more in your knees. You're going to feel it more in your hips, more in your low back. So really what we want to make sure that we're doing is keeping the stretch in the belly of the muscle, because the muscle is the elastic tissue in the body rather than the tendons and the ligaments. Okay. There's not nearly as much stretch in the tendons and ligaments. So you want to be safe. It also allows you, again, just to have that grounded sensation in the feet. So making sure that know what your body likes to do, right? So again, for me, being more on the flat foot side, my ankles like to turn in, and I end up putting more weight in my heels and the inside arch of my foot. So I have to really focus on bringing the weight a little bit forward and pressing into the pinky toe edges of my feet rather than sinking back, letting my butt fall back, and letting the weight come to the insides of my feet. So we're all going to do it. You're all going to get into it. And I'm going to have you kind of do it the lazy way without getting hurt. And then I'm going to have you do it the more active way. Okay. So come on up to standing. Bring your feet out wide. And so if you want to measure it out, bring your arms out to the sides And if you can visualize, if you don't have a mirror in front of you or something, bringing your ankles underneath your wrists. Yeah, so it's pretty wide, right? And then make sure your feet are parallel, or if your low back is okay, pigeon toe in, so let your toes point in slightly. And then lift your heart, get nice and tall through the spine. And then as you exhale, I want you to fold forward, but do it kind of floppy and not really controlled. Let your butt sink back. The weight drops more into the heels. And then think about it. See how deep you can get into it without hurting yourself. I don't want you to get hurt, but I want you to feel it out. See what it feels like to get a little bit deeper into it. Okay. Take some notes, some mental notes, and then come back up to standing. Pedal it out a little bit, bend one knee, then the other, shake it out a little bit. All right. And then once again, get your stance set up, arms out to your sides. Lift and spread your toes. Feel yourself root down into all four corners of your feet. Low belly stays engaged. Lift your heart. And then as you exhale, hinge at the hips. Lead with your heart. Keep your spine long. Keep the weight forward towards the ball of your foot and come into your fold. Hands reach down to wherever they're going to go. And then really feel yourself lift up on your kneecaps. And root down into your feet. Keep the weight equally distributed from front to back and left to right in your feet. Low belly draws in, tailbone reaches up towards the sky, and crown of your head reaches down. And then when you're done and you're satisfied and you've made your mental notes, come on out of it and come talk to me. Do you feel the differences between the two?
Feels like more of an active pose when you're thinking about all those cues rather than just flopping into it.
Yeah, for sure. And when we have such a wide fold with so much muscle involvement, and most of us are probably pretty tight on the inner thighs, from a safety perspective, it's really important to have that engagement. Okay. What else? What else did you feel differences? Eyes towards the mat. Like you're talking like craning your head to look at the mat. Whatever is going to be neutral and best for you. So if you are someone who can get down pretty low, then yeah, look at the mat if that's going to be okay in your neck. Otherwise, just look back behind you. Excuse me, sorry. Caleb, go ahead.
When I'm coming out of the, we're still on wide-legged forward fold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. When I'm coming out of it, I feel like my hips are kind of moving forward. Our hips supposed to be completely stationary as our torso comes back up? Because I feel like I almost have to move it to get back in line for a 5-pointed star. So it's like it's almost like a swooping motion kind of with the hips. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
Is
and
that
I'm sure,
okay?
I'm sure it feels more swoopy to you than it actually is. And yes, hands on hips are okay. Perfectly fine. So what happens is, no, you don't ever want your hips to be perfectly static, right? Even in holding poses, there's always some level of micro movement. And especially when we're coming out of a wide forward fold, so for me, I actually have to bend my knees and bring my hands to my thighs to come out of it. Otherwise, I'm going to tweak the ever-loving hell out of my back. And that's going to be the end of yoga for me. So, you will have to, your hips will move naturally. They'll come forward, or for some people, they'll even start to shift back a little bit. As long as your core is engaged and your legs are still strong as you're coming out of it, you're fine. Okay. So don't think so much about what's happening in the shape of your body so much as what's happening in the mechanics of the body. Does that make more sense? So as long as your low belly is engaged, as long as your legs are engaged, then your low back is going to be safe. Okay. And if you get any pain or anything in your low back when you're coming up out of it, bend your knees and put your hands on the tops of your thighs to come out of it so that you're safe on your back, okay? Cool. What else? What else did you notice? Is anyone else like flat foot? They roll their ankles in at all? Do you know if you are? Maybe. Interesting. Okay. Sam, talk to me.
A question, little bit difference between low arch or no arch versus flat foot.
It's pretty subtle.
Okay.
It's pretty subtle. Yeah.
Because I have no arch, but I am stronger on the outside of my ankles than the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. It's feet are that weird thing. When I'm saying more flat foot, it's like no, how to say, not really, not even an arch, because I do have an arch. If you look at my foot, it looks completely normal, but I pronate really, really bad. So my, it's almost like the bone in my ankle will almost touch the ground. It's really strange. And I have to really focus to press on the outside edges of my feet. So the next time we'll play with the feet a little bit here today, just because I want you to all kind of be able to feel what that feels like. Because it could change your practice. And this is like geeky yoga stuff, not necessarily that you need to know for the sequence or anything like that, but it's interesting as you start to watch people's bodies and what they do. So again, just to kind of have you feel it in your body so that you can then, translate it to your students. Cool. So modifications, I kind of mentioned those already. Bending the knees and or hands on blocks. Okay, so it's not so much about how low you get. It's not so much about, how far apart your feet are, as long as you're feeling the stretch through the backs of the legs, the inner thighs, and your spine is safe, you're doing just fine. Adjustments in the world that we're in right now, my big thing would be the verbal adjustment, just to make sure that they have the weight shifted slightly forward towards the ball of the foot, and you'll be able to see the difference. Okay, so you'll see the difference when someone has the weight forward versus the weight back. So I'll show you what it looks like. Bear with me. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So I'm going to come into a side view and have myself come into a wide fold. So I've got my feet parallel. So you can, if you can see that, I don't know, but I'll lift and then I'll come into it with my weight back. So already my butt is coming back. The weight is in my heels. The ball of my foot is even lifting and I'm here. So now you can see visually what's going on in my body. I can't really even get low because of the way that my hips are. So if I shift my weight forward and then fold, I get more of a stretch through the hamstrings, but you can see that. So if you see your students doing that, give them that verbal adjustment to shift the weight slightly forward so that they're safe and getting the most out of the pose. Okay. Cool. All right. Feeling pretty good about it? Okay. I'm gonna plug myself back in. Right along. Goddess pose. Do you have the Sanskrit in your manual? Okay. Anybody want to try it? Unmuted?
Devyasana.
Yeah. Yep. Devyasana. Okay. So Devi is goddess. And I like also in my notes here, so I've got these fun little notes. It says can be called horse or squatting angle pose. So if you're uncomfortable with calling it goddess, you can call it squatting angle pose or horse. Generally, though, if you say horse or goddess, your students know exactly where you're going, okay? So from triangle, right? Remembering that we always come from triangle with these two. Inhale back to standing or 5-pointed star. Turn the toes towards the corners of the mat. Lengthen spine and then bend the knees. Okay, so those are all just the transitions. Once they're in the pose, knees stay over the ankles. You can draw the hips lower and then shoulders over the hips. So instead of leaning forward or too far back, you want to keep the spine in a nice straight and even line. With this one, really important to keep the low belly engaged, right? Because what'll happen is you'll see the low back scoop. Okay, and so you want to be careful with that scoop. There's always going to be some level of curvature in the low back. This is not to say that I want your back to be completely rigid and, you know, cardboard flat, but it's more so making sure that you keep the low belly engaged as you lower down to protect the low back, right? So if you are someone who has more of a hyperlordosis in your low back, meaning that your low back has a severe curve and you know your butt sticks out more, you want to be careful with that so that you don't exacerbate that. So keeping the low belly engaged. So when you come into that squat, come into the squat with the knees bent. You want to make sure that you keep the low belly engaged so that, yes, you do have some curve in the low back, but it's not one of these, right? Because then you're just taking it out of the core and out of the pelvic floor. And you want more so of that engagement of that buoyant lift, right? So it's not so much like just dumping into the tops of the thighs. That's just going to get exhausting after a while. So when you engage the legs fully in horse or goddess pose, it's much more effective in the legs, right? Because think about it, we're getting you prepped for pigeon. Pigeon is going to be coming soon. The spine strengtheners are going to be coming soon. So we need strong glutes for that, okay? Hang on, let me plug this in. All this back and forth. So when we engage the glutes first, and then we work the stretch in pigeon and things like that, it's going to be more effective, okay? So let me show you, I want you to feel what I'm talking about. So come up to goddess or horse pose, please, if you will. All right. So now come into it just as if you would in any class, right? So feet are wide, toes point out to the corners of your mat, and then sink down, bend your knees, and drop into it. And then without hurting yourself, please don't hurt yourself. I want you to let your low belly relax a little bit and let your hips sink into it. Yeah. Okay, so it feels like most of the weight or most of the strain is probably in your quads, right? Ish. Okay. Then stand up, 5-pointed star, rise up, shake it out a little bit. Okay, and then adjust your feet. So maybe step your feet in a little bit closer than where they are. Toes point out towards the corners of your mat. And then lift and spread your toes, root down into all 4 corners of your feet. And as you bend your knees, bend them in the same direction as your middle 3 toes. So really focus on using the outer hips to pull your knees open. Okay, low belly draws in and feel your pelvic floor lift. Okay, so engaging Mula Bandha. Ribs pull back towards your spine. You're nice and strong. And imagine you're doing like a wall sit. So you're, Christian, don't fall over. So you're like sitting up against an imaginary wall behind you. Good. Now, can you sit a little bit lower like this? and still maintain all of that engagement and feel really strong. So it should get to a point where you feel like you're working, but it feels buoyant, right? It feels like your whole body is working at the same time. Make sense? All right, don't kill yourselves and come on back and talk to me about it. Talk to me about the differences. How does it feel when you kind of get into it lazy versus staying nice and engaged?
I think the Mula Bandha helped my how did it feel? Like my inner thighs and hips helped me bring focus to them so that my knees were pointing in the right direction a little bit more easily. Because I've noticed, just because I don't do goddess pose that often, that they tend to come in. So engaging that helped kind of like splay everything out as it should be. So I really liked that cue a lot.
Good, good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's a pretty common thing, is that the knees will fall in, right? So your knees will kind of knock in towards one another. And then that's where the quads start to take up most of the work. Christian, go ahead. What you got?
I was saying goodbye to Diane, but I agree. Who else? Someone said, Katie said, there's more ease when engaged. Yeah, I just felt like the tension. I also really liked your cue, the buoyancy cue, because yeah, when we did it and you just kind of dumped in, I really felt it in my quads. But when everything was more tight or engaged, yeah, it just everything moved together better. Everything felt more stable.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Kayla, what do you have?
Today I learned that my knees can't go directly, my knees can't go directly over my ankles in that pose without like the inside of my foot coming up. So I already know I have high kneecaps. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I just can't, it just doesn't work. So no matter how like close or far I have my legs, I mean, I guess the closer I bring them, maybe, but I don't know. It's just hard for me.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the thing too. It's everybody's body is built differently from a structural standpoint. So, you'll have students that all of their muscles are engaged in the way that they need to be, but their bones are preventing it from looking a certain way, right? And that's okay. So I've had a student where, for whatever reason, her femurs were twisted, right? So, and it wasn't like a muscular thing causing it. It's a structural thing, just the way that her femur sits in her hip. And so every time she would do malasana or certain other poses, it was very evident and it would look funky, but she's engaging all of the muscles in the correct way. It just, to her, it looks funny. So that's, know that when your students are doing things, if you're asking them to engage certain muscles, but it doesn't look a certain way, just know that they may very well be engaging the muscles correctly. And that might be what you're encountering. So are you able to like engage in a way that you feel all the benefits of the pose? It's just that you're noticing that your knees are doing something different.
Yeah, I just noticed that. I think that today, that was the first time I ever heard that cue, whenever you told us while we were like mid practice to try to get your knees over your ankles. And I was like, wait a second, I can't do that. So, I mean, the rest of it, like my core is engaged, my legs are engaged. It's just, I mean, I feel like it kind of maybe prevents me from sinking super low.
Yeah.
But other than that, like everything else feels right. So I think it's just bones, I guess.
Yeah, it very well could be. And with the cue, knees over ankles, that's really mostly just to keep you at a 90-degree angle. So it's, think of it like warrior 2 or crescent lunge. It's really just to keep you at that 90-degree angle, not coming into some like weird, like you've got your feet in here and your knees out here, like doing some weird thing like that. So play around with it. Like if you can, practice in front of a mirror, just to kind of gauge where your body is and where you're getting the best sensation. But again, don't worry so much about like So the knees over ankles is more from like a lateral view. Like if you're looking in the manual and you look at the photo of Suzanne, her knees are stacked on top of her ankles from side view, right? But if you were to look at her from the side, her knees may be coming a little bit forward of her ankles from that side view. Does that make sense? So is that kind of what's happening in your body? Yeah, okay, I got it. Cool. I love breaking all this down. And it's super hard to break it down when you're like this big on my screen. So Tori, go ahead. What you got?
How this may be it's kind of unrelated to the posture itself, but when you said that students have different bone structures, how do you balance between giving cues that respect that person's body and like recognizing when someone has a different bone structure?
I don't talk so much about what it's supposed to look like.
Okay.
I talk about a lot of what it feels like in your body, rather than like, saying, oh, make a straight line from blah, blah, blah. Like it's more so, I want people to feel a certain thing rather than think that they need to look a certain way.
Okay.
So, yeah, and the best thing that you can do, and this comes more into play with like physical adjustments, right? So if you are, in a class, and maybe some of you have had this happen where, the teacher is physically adjusting you and that like your body just doesn't go in that direction. Like it's just, you can push my knee whatever way you want, it's not going to go there. You can kind of gauge your resistance against that adjustment so that when you have a student who's resisting you in an adjustment, it may just simply be because their body is not going to go in that direction, right? And so that's a good way to, okay, you know what, if you're resisting me, I'm going to back off, and maybe we'll talk about it after class. But if you're, and Sam, maybe if you have something to add, please do. But generally speaking, when you're cueing, if you're cueing it more from, this is what the pose should feel like, versus this is what the pose should look like, then you're pretty solid as far as making sure that you're not excluding someone whose bones just don't do the thing.
I was going to say that sometimes what it feels like is also very different for everybody too.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping with the engaging and feeling that engagement is a little bit more accessible for everybody. But yeah, you can definitely feel in your own body when somebody's, and even if you're not getting an adjustment, but you're like, I don't know, sinking your hips a little bit more in child's pose, and you can feel that there is a resistance, and you tune into that fine tuning of what you can do, and then maybe you notice it in the students as well when you have them under your hands.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, teaching yoga, it's interesting stuff. And you will say things that you're like, why did that come out of my mouth? Why did I say that? Like the time that I was teaching beginners, and I was like, just point your imaginary headlights forward. And I'm just like, oh, wait, why did I just say that? That's terrible. When you get the students like looking at you funny in the mirror and you're like, oh, yeah, I won't say that again. So some modifications for this: don't squat as low, right? So if you've got funky stuff going on in your hips, your knees, what have you, just don't come into it as deep. Back against the wall, and then whatever arm variation. So here is traditional for goddess pose, right? In Mukhi Mudra, with the opening to whatever comes your way. You can have hands at heart center. You can do any kind of flowing movements with the arms. It's really up to you, whatever works best for your students. But this is another one that's really strongly. So if you think about when you pull the knees open away from the midline, right, you're really activating the glute muscles, the outer hip muscles. So all of that is prepping you for pigeon. Okay. So we're working the inner thigh, getting that open. so that when you're ready to come into pigeon and spine strengthening, because your glutes come into play in spine strengthening. Okay. Don't let your butt go soft in spine strengtheners. Okay. Keep the butt engaged. So all of this leading up into the next series for you. Cool. Questions, comments before I give you another break, since we've gotten through it all? Christian, go ahead.
So just thinking about the opening the knees up is, so I think the main concern there is not to let the knees drop in, but is there, can you open your knees up too much? Is that an issue people run into? Of people trying to get their hips maybe too wide?
If that's the case, then they probably have their feet too narrow. But that's not one that you're going to see very often. Yeah. Yeah. Most things that you're going to see is the knees falling in towards the midline. Cool. You might see like somebody who's super, super bendy have, get their knees way past, but generally speaking, that's not what you'll see. You'll see a lot of like no engagement in the core, like I had you practice, where the belly kind of falls forward and you get the scoop in the low back. So you want to stay engaged there, again, just for that buoyancy, keeping everything engaged rather than just relying solely on your quads. Because if you're just relying solely on your quads, you're not prepping the rest of the body for pigeon and things like that. So, but yeah, good question. Anything else? Anybody else? All right. So I'm going to give you another break. And then for the last little bit, I'll break you up into groups so that you can practice teaching just triangle sequence, just the triangle series before we wrap up for the day, because I can't believe it's already noon. I feel like I just started teaching, but that's okay. So do me a favor when you get back from break. If you've been broken up into groups before, let me know somebody that you've worked with a lot already so that I know not to set you up with that person. Okay. But let's take 15. Okay. So come back in 15 minutes. So 10 after 12 ish. And then we'll do the thing. Okay. Cool. Sam, how are you feeling?
My butt's sore from sitting.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm like, oh, I could move today. And then like my back and my hip is just killing me today. So I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Cool.
But otherwise good. It's nice doing it with you. I don't get to do much with you for this.
I know. I know. I feel like I don't get to do a whole lot with posture clinics, but that's the way it's going for next year. So I'm glad to have you on board.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad to be here. It's a nice refresher course as well, especially considering I don't teach vinyasa on a regular basis.
Right.
It's good to come back to it.
Good. Awesome. All right. I'm going to hit the potty.
Yep.
Hey, Sam, I just made you co-host so that I don't need to put you into a specific breakout room. You can just kind of float with me in and out. All right. Hi, everyone. I have the breakout rooms divided up. Max, I know, well, yeah, Max, you need to leave soon. So I put you into,
He's probably gonna leave. Sorry, he's probably gonna leave at like at 1/2 past. So
Okay.
however long we're doing this, he's got till then.
Perfect. That'll actually work out because what I'll do is I've got him in a room with 3 people, so he could do a quick teach first and then head out for whatever he needs to do. And then, yeah. So all I want you to do when I break you up into these breakout rooms is to teach each other the triangle sequence. So start in down dog, end in down dog, and just work on getting the cues out of your mouth and all that good stuff. And then we'll circle back. I'll show you some fun neck stretches. So those of you that are missing out, you'll have to watch the recording later. Or Kayla, I'm sure you can show Max what he missed. But yeah, we'll close out. So I think, let me just put a time limit on this here. So I'm gonna put you in for 30 minutes. Okay. So after 30 minutes, it'll bump you back here to the main room. So that'll give you time to practice teaching triangle sequence. And then we'll circle back. Okay. Cool. So thank you for letting me know some people that you've worked with a whole lot, so that I tried my best not to repeat, but it's kind of hard when there's only, 11 of you. So, so yeah, I've got you all set up. You'll get the invites here in just a moment. Okay.
If I don't see you again, have a good day at work, Max.
Yeah, Max, we'll see you if we don't see you. All right. Go for it. And then Sam, you should be able to just pop into different breakout rooms. If you go to where it says breakout rooms, you should be able to pop into whatever.
Is that under the more or?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so hit more and then it'll say breakout room unassigned. No?
No, my more says stop recording or pause.
Oh, all right.
So could it be, no, not under participants?
No, it would be under more. I wonder if I have to just make you straight up host, but can I do that?
Let's see here. Okay, so sometimes there's the more that's attached to the participants. Nope, that's name and add profile. So no, that's not helpful. Okay.
Well, I can just put you in a room then.
Yeah.
Okay.
That works.
I'll just put you in a room. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one do you like?
Let's do 3.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Yep.
How'd it go? How do you feel after teaching? Good, good.
We did have one question about the order of the sequence, but we can wait till everyone gets back if that'd be best to just address it all at once. But yeah, no, I think that was really helpful. Me and Christian were both saying that this one feels like it's a lot easier to memorize, especially after doing Crescent last week.
Yeah, Crescent it can get confusing for sure. Wait, you didn't do Crescent last week, right? Please tell me I just taught you that. Okay. I just had a panic, like, did I just teach the wrong posture clinic? Oh my gosh.
Can I ask a quick clarification on the crescent cues?
Of course.
Because I always get tripped up over the like a side extension. So if people are not doing the open the so it's an option to reach the leg out to extend it to the outside
For
lizard lunge.
Lizard lunge.
Okay. And so then we only say the front foot flexes if they're extending it to the outside.
Mhm.
Okay. So we say like option to extend the right knee to the outside. If it's outside, flex through the front foot.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and because what happens is if you let the knee fall open, and I'm going to try to show you as best I can. If you let the knee fall open and you're on the knife edge, what happens is the foot rolls in, okay? And so you get this weird sickling thing happening in the knee or in the ankle, which is really not good if you look at the line of energy, right? It puts a lot of pressure on the outer ligament of the knee. So when you activate that, you're activating the muscles along the outside of the leg. So that keeps the knee safe and it keeps that downward pressure from really putting a lot of stress and strain on the outside of the knee. So it's really important that if you do in lizard lunge, if you do let the knee fall open, that you have the foot flex to keep the muscles engaged and protect the knee. So yeah.
And then is it okay if your toes come off the mat, or should they still be like, should you be connecting the whole foot to the mat?
It just depends on your anatomy, honestly. Like if I flex my toes and I do that, my toes, the ball of my foot is on the floor, but my toes are off the floor. Does that make sense? So yeah. Yeah, you got to stay safe there. Let's see, is everybody else? I don't want to just like close the rooms on people if they're still practicing, so.
I think Caleb might have actually hurt his knee. He said I think he hurt it in pigeon, and I wonder if they didn't have it flexed. So
Pigeon, and you'll learn pigeon with Austin. Pigeon, it's different. So if you are trying to work your shin parallel to the top of the mat, you need to make sure that your foot is flexed. But that's not something that's always going to work for everybody. So if your shin is more of an angle, then you need to have your foot pointed back towards your hip. So if you have your leg like this, flex, right? So get that strength there. If you have your leg like this, more at this angle, then you need to have your foot pointed. Just again, to keep the pressure out of the knee and to make sure that the ankle is safe. Because yeah, it's one of those that pigeon will really tweak your knee if you're not doing it right.
Question about pointing the toes if you're angling back. Does that, because I'm never exactly sure what's happening in the knee, why it's better to not flex the foot if you've got your your toes pointed back towards your heel or towards your hip.
It just has to do with the angle of the knee, and like if you try it, like if you try to bring your foot back and flex your leg while you're laying down on your leg, it's just a lot of pressure on the ankle, and it actually it'll make the heel lift up off the floor a little bit more if you have your foot flexed, whereas if you point it down, it's helping to relax and open through the knee joint because it's more severe angle, right? So it all has to do with the angle of the knee. Whereas like, let me put this down here so that you can see a little bit better. So if I have my, and Austin will talk a little bit more about this. If I have my leg this way and I've got the more of a right angle, my foot needs to be flexed so that I'm protecting my knee, because if my foot is like this and my foot sickles, then I put pressure downward on the knee joint and it can tweak the knee because you've got the muscles of the outer leg pulling on the knee joint this way and you've got your foot flexed. So the ankle is actually putting more pressure on the knee too. But if you have the foot flexed this way, it actually activates the muscle. So an active stretch is a little bit safer in pigeon versus if you have your foot this way, it's just more anatomically sound, like than trying to flex your foot this way, right? Because then when you do that, it'll actually put more pressure in the knee joint to have your foot flexed when it's that way. So yeah, it's one of those weird things, like it's all got to do with the angle of the knee. Cool. What else? Let's see. Caleb, I'm going to close the rooms and get everybody back because you're all here anyway, except 3. So hang on. Okay. So I just want to, we'll do a little wrap up, clear up any questions and stuff once everybody gets back. In like 30 seconds. I love technology. This is my least favorite way to teach yoga, by the way. It's fine. I'll live with it, but I want to be in person.
I think Austin was talking about doing one of these in person at some point, maybe, but.
Yeah, I think he's going to try and do next week's in person. For those of you that can be in person, but cool. All right, everybody's back. How'd it go? Flo, Caleb, how'd it go for you? Good. All right. So, Belle, hold on to that thought real quick. I'm just going to kind of run down. So the last like 15 minutes, I promised you that I'm going to show you some neck stretches and things like that to kind of keep you better able to take care of yourself. And then we'll just kind of wrap it up and answer any lingering questions about anything that's come up to this point. So yeah, that's how we're going to do it. Belle, what was your question?
Yeah, we were just wondering, so when you go through on the left side in this series, do you just skip the forward fold and then you go straight into goddess pose from that 5-pointed star?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So on this particular series, it's symmetrical until you get to that 5-pointed star. Then it's either going to be a forward fold or it's going to be goddess pose. So there's no forward fold on both sides.
For sure. Thanks.
All right. So if you have, and you don't need it now, one of the things that'll start to happen is you practice yoga so much and you're so focused on chaturanga and lowering down and things like that. What'll happen is you start to build up tension in your upper neck and your traps and things like that. Okay. So a couple things that you can do to help alleviate this, and you can actually, think about working them into classes and things like that, is number one, if you have a block, like a yoga block or some tennis balls, you can use those. I like to use the block though. So you take the block, and I don't have it with me, but you can kind of visualize. You take the block on its middle setting. So where the long edges are on the mat, right? Yes, like that. Samantha, you're amazing. Thank you. And so you lie down in what's called constructive rest. So Sam, do you want to demonstrate since you've got the block? So lie down in constructive rest, and constructive rest is on your back Knees are bent, soles of your feet are on the floor, but your feet are out wide and your knees knock in towards one another. Okay, and so this is, if you have any low back stuff, anything like that, this will help to release your psoas muscles. So the big muscle that connects the top half of your body from the bottom half of your body. So this will let it relax. And then you can take the block on the long edge and bring it right to the base of your skull. So like right where the skull and the neck meet. So your chin will tuck in towards your chest and the block is at the base of your skull. And then just very slowly let your head roll to the right and let your head roll to the left. And so you're doing a little self-massage on the base of the neck, like right at that occipital muscle. So if you all reach back and you find your neck and wiggle your fingers up to where your skull starts to create that curve, you'll feel those occipital muscles right there at the base of your neck. They're probably pretty tender if you press on them. Those are the muscles that you want to have on the block, or even like a tennis ball. Or if you have like a water bottle, you can use a water bottle, but wrap it in a towel so that it's not so harsh, and it doesn't go rolling away on you. So it's not like gonna like just fly out from under your head. And that's a really nice way just to kind of release the neck, release the head a little bit. If you have, Corey, if you're listening, it'll be helpful. It's really nice if you have migraines and things like that. Stress headaches, tension headaches, all of that stuff, okay? And then the next one that you can do from a simple seated position is nerve flossing. And so I really like this because a lot of what happens in students that do a lot of like things like chaturanga and up dog and things like that is you tend to get up here, right? We spend a lot of time trying to bring the shoulders down, but you still have this tension, and you'll get this tension all through the scalenes, the muscles along the sides of the neck. And just disclaimer, I'm a massage therapist as well, first before a yoga teacher. So this is all stuff that I'm well versed in. So I'm not just telling you goofy stuff. So you can release the nerves that come out through the neck. So if you ever find yourself like you're doing chaturanga and you have pain down the front side of your shoulder, or if you like go to lift your arm up in front of you and you feel tension or a pulling or any kind of like sharp pain here, especially after you've done chaturanga a bunch of times, this will be really nice. So you sit, arms out to your sides, and then let your left fingertips come down to the floor. So just the fingertips touch on the floor. And then your fingers on your other hand are reaching out. So really, really extend your right arm out. And you might already start to feel that. Start to reach your hand back a little bit. So you might feel this like weird, like pulling sensation down the arm. If you don't and you need more, take your left ear and tip it towards your left shoulder. And if you don't feel a lot, let your right hand come down and back, like you're trying to pick up something back behind you on the floor. Oh, there's that face, Christian. There you go. Make sure that your left shoulder isn't trying to help you. Bring your left shoulder down. Good. And then make a fist with your right hand. Good. And then stick your thumb out, like you're pointing your thumb straight forward. Okay, keep your head relaxed. Your head is heavy. And then without letting the movement, I'm going to try and tip this down so you can see. Without the movement coming from my shoulder, I don't want the movement to come from my shoulder. I want to keep my head down and then just rotate your thumb down and then rotate it up. Nice and slow and controlled, letting the movement come from the elbow more so than the shoulder. Rotate down and rotate up with the breath, keeping the breath steady. Oh. Let go of your jaw. If you're holding your jaw, scrunching your face, making that face like, oh my God, I just tapped into something awful, like just relax as much as you can. Okay. And then reach through your hand, open your hand, reach it down, and then take your left hand, reach it up, hold on, and stretch gently away. So you're getting even more of that stretch. Okay. Now relax your right arm and then pick your head up with your hand. Okay. And then you got to do it again on the other side. So even yourself out. If you sit at a computer, you're at a computer, spend lots of time driving, things like that, serving, all that stuff, this is going to be really good for you. So get it on the other side. So start out, arms down by your sides, reach out, and then right fingertips float down. Reach through your left hand, down and back-ish. So you'll know when you hit the spot. It'll be different than your other arm, just depending. And then when you're ready for that extra sensation, let your, oh my goodness, right ear drop down towards your right shoulder. And do your best to keep your shoulder blades down your back rather than creeping up. And breathe here for a couple breaths. And then when you're ready, you can make your fist and point your thumb forward. And then again, without letting it come from the shoulder, you don't want the movement to come from the shoulder. You want it to come from the elbow, feeling the radius and the ulna in your lower arm kind of twisting along their axis. Good. Keep your head down towards your shoulder as much as you can. And then when you've had it with that movement, so in this one, on this side, I actually feel the pull really strongly between my first knuckle and my middle knuckle. And let your arm open up and then reach up and grab hold of the side of your head and give yourself a little tug. So you're holding on like kind of right at your jawline and you're pulling to stretch open. You're really working with the fascia more so than trying to just jam the muscles open. And then release your hand down. Keep your head heavy. Use your hand to pick your head up. How does that one feel? Do you like that? Hate it? I love hate it. Okay. So now there's one more that I'll show you that's really good. Actually, two more. Let me just make sure that we have time. Why did my clock on my phone just completely crap to the bed? So this one, you can do it from standing, but you'll interlace your fingers and then flip your palms forward, shoulders down the back, okay? And then from here, reach your arms up, keep your fingers interlaced just like that. And then very slowly and gently, I'm gonna try to get this so you can see it. Very slowly and gently, start to let your fingers come apart. Fingertips touch, keep the palms facing up. And then slowly start to let your arms float down. So you're keeping that palm press. Arms start to float down and you'll start to get to about here. And you'll feel that like pulling pulsation in your fingers. Stay here. Push away from you. Fingers point up as much as you can get them. Okay. And then from there, you come down, fingers still face up until you get to about here. And then you'll turn your palms in, fingertips touch, and then backs of your hands touch. Come here, and then flip your hands into prayer position, and then start it all over again. So you can do it with your breath. Up overhead, slowly start to release your fingers, come down nice and slow. Do this as slow as you can so you really feel that pull on the nerves. Once you get to about that 45-degree angle, flip your palms, come in front of your torso, fingertips touch, backs of the hands touch up towards your heart, and then palms. And you can do that a couple more times, however many times you need to, okay? So that'll help all your neck, your shoulders, your arms. And then Last but not least, you can take your fingers, interlace them at the base of your skull. So you want your thumbs to kind of rest on the sides of your neck here. Pull your elbows back, lift your chin, and press. So you're getting that resistance. You're pushing your hands into your head and your head back into your hands, but keep your chin slightly tucked. So you don't want to go here, right? You want your chin a little bit tucked. You feel the muscles all along your upper back engaging pretty strongly. And then as you exhale, you start to round, curl your elbows into touch, and tuck your chin. And hold there. And then as you inhale, start to open back up, lift your chin, squeeze your elbows open, squeeze your shoulder blades. And then again, you can do that as many times as you want to, nice and slow with your breath. So all of these things will help with neck tension, shoulder tension, anything funky that you've got going on, and all that good stuff. How's that feel? Good. Flo, you were the one that instigated all this. So did that answer questions, things like that? Yeah, that last one is really good.
These were really good. Thank you so much.
Good. Yeah, you're welcome. You can do those like, so if you're in your own practice, you can do those, you know, seated as you're warming up. This one where you come here and come up and out, you can do that standing before your first forward fold, things like that, when you're, you know, coming from Samasthiti, things like that. So, cool. All right. Well, I can't believe it, but it's like that time already. So, yeah, practice, practice. Have fun tomorrow. And we'll end with the word. So I'll call you in order. Belle.
Reading.
Good. Katie.
Devyasana.
Awesome. Christian.
Less sore.
Good. I'm glad. Tori.
Growing.
Samantha.
Open.
Jenny.
Stronger.
Flo.
Stretched.
Caleb.
Glow.
Oh, not Max. Kayla.
Tension.
Cool. And Corey, I'm glad that middle one helped you. Felt good. If you want to share a word, if you feel like typing it in, relax. Awesome. Cool. And triangle. It's my favorite. All right. Thank you all so much. It was so fun to spend non-chakra time with you. I can't wait till we get to do the extra postures stuff, because that's super, super fun. That's when we get to just have yoga fun. So enjoy the rest of your day. Forget about triangle, forget about yoga, and go enjoy your Saturday, okay? Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Corey. I hope you feel better. Thanks, Sam. I'm going to stop the recording.